Welcome, champions. How's everyone doing? Hey, Shandie. Sure Shakins. What's up? Boop. The Kubele. Hello. Kratos. What's up? You just finished Crux's speedrun, contemplating trying animated GIF. You don't know if you feel like punching a hole through your monitor today, though. How well did you finish the speedrun? If you had some, if you felt like you could keep going, with a solid speed team, you could probably fit that in. Hey, LazyCat, what's up? As a lot of you know, I gotta put something else in the background for my own sanity. Let's go with this today. Let me know if it is too loud or too quiet for your tastes. This is what we're gonna be rocking to today, though. Parada, what's up? My cat is taking a ceremonial I can't talk today. Oh my god. Ceremonial shit in her cat box. Oh man. Today's gonna be one of those days, boys. Could have kept going until they decided to remove Artie. Yeah. It really comes down to how decent your speed team is for him, for sure, and who they take. Like, if they take Briv early and you got some Briv jumps, that hurts, but... yeah. As you can see, Virgil is not looking at me anymore. He is now offering Kane's thighs a monster. Do they need it, though? Suffering from seromorphosis for a moment. What's up, Ravenous? Oh man, I need to get back on my diet and working out. I've been off of it for like 4 days and it is not doing good for me. Oh. What do you want, cat? Where you going? You gonna hide or you gonna sleep? Well, today will be Seat 6, as most of you know. A lot of interesting options there, but I foresee a lot of derankage going on, but we'll see. Getting a few things set up. Okay. Should be fine. So, Seat 6. We've got Asharra, Krond, Krull, Evelyn, Alyndra, Reya, Fen, Shandie, Sergeant Knox, Dungeon Master, and Shadowheart. D rankage or D rankage. I don't know if anyone here is going into a hard D. Maybe Knox. But we'll see. I don't know if Knox is a full D, but we'll obviously take a look at him today. But as usual, we will start with the core champion of the seat. In this case, Asharra. Can be a decent DPS in her own right. And of course, as core champion, that's useful. Not the greatest availability, but we'll look at all that. Very heavily tied to her specializations, so we'll just dive right into those. She selects bonds based on races and will buff them accordingly. If she herself reaches 4 people slotted that fit that race bracket... Nope, she's going into hiding. You won't see Kitty anymore today. Oh well. If she reaches 4 out of 4 for 2 of her potential bonds, she can receive them. The most important thing, if you are selecting Asharra as your DPS, is Popery, because she counts, being Aarakocra herself, but will technically double dip, as she will receive the bond itself as a support buff, and receive her personal buff from the bond for reaching 4 out of 4 races slotted in the formation. So for the sake of this, we'll take Potpourri, but if you're just using her as a support, just select whichever race you're using for your DPS. And in this case, I will go with Exotic, as they have a lot of powerful options in my opinion, but you will just take whatever you can populate the most in your current formation to give her 4 out of 4 for both. In this case, again, I'll take Exotic, which includes Asimar, Bullywug, Doppelganger, Ganassi, Gith, Haringan, Kalishtar, Sariel, Tabaxi, Warforged, and Yuan Ti. Bullywug being Blushi, an excellent buffer. You know, you have Gith, with Gith Zerai being Nrak. There's some good buffers in Exotic, but there's some great half and half as well. Especially if you want to take the likes of Valentine, as she is half-elf. But we're gonna go with Exotic for today. So you can see, with only her slotted, I do have my core champion item level up to roughly 30k. So she definitely has some item level investment, but it gets up to an E14, not too bad. Not the best, but not too bad. But the more you slot, it will climb a little bit. But you can see her Paragon of Curseball is how she gets affected by each bond. Increase the potency of each bond separately by 100% for each matching bonded race in the party. Additionally, Asharra gains the effect of a given bond if at least 4 champions are affected by it, and it will keep track here. If you were here for my Seat 3 video, I did showcase that glitch feats are supposed to work, and most of them do. However, Nayeli does not, and she should, and I don't know why. We can briefly just showcase that again, since we're talking about Asharra herself now, as these are things you're going to want to be paying attention to. So, I have Nayeli equipped with a Githyanki glitch feat. She should be counting as human and Githyanki. However, if we look at her bonds, Githyanki should be a part of Exotic. She is not counting. It is unfortunate, especially considering they're both core champions and that makes it easier to use them together, but alas. But then you have the likes of Calliope, who has a glitch feat to count as Haringan. And that, alternatively, does count for Exotic. So you just need to pay attention. I believe at this moment Nayeli is the only one, excuse me, with a glitch feat that does not work. But I could be wrong, there might be others. Good time zone to all. Hello, El Jefe. What do you mean exactly? I'm in a good time slot or a bad one? We're going to populate this formation real quick with at least 4 out of 4 Potpourri and 4 out of 4 Exotic to get her both her bonds in this scenario. Lae'zel could possibly work as a Githyanki for Exotic. However, as we went over in that seat, Blushi is an excellent buffer, and she is Bullywug, so will count for Exotic. Might be morning for some, afternoon for others, evening if someone is in Europe, etc. Yeah. I still haven't solidified, if I stream beyond these tier lists, what my schedule will be. I went with this because it's when I usually publish my videos on YouTube, and just happens to align with my personal schedule. But we'll see in the future. So let's see. Karlach is an excellent Potpourri. Gromma now is a pretty decent buffer and counts as Potpourri, so we'll throw her in there. Havilar and or Kira have half-elf feats. Can we get Asharra to 4 bond stacks again? Do you mean will Havilar and or Kira count as both if you select Potpourri and half-elf? I think so. I haven't tested that actually. Let's go ahead and test that. Use my limited stock of respecializations. Potpourri and half-elf. So, Dragonborn counting as Potpourri, and half-elf should be counting as, of course, half and half. And yeah, we're at 2 out of 1. So yeah, using the likes of those will double count for races. Hello, new here. How is everyone who... Oh, hey, what's up, Void? You're the second Void of the stream. Or no, Xander's Void was the other one. So we'll call you Void. What's up? So yeah, Lazy, that could be a way to go about it as well, to free up your formation, as getting 4 out of 4 in 2 races forces you to use 8 specific raced champions. But with someone like Orkira, with a glitch feat, she can count as Dragonborn and half and half, so that frees you up a bit, if those are the routes you're going, for how to populate your formation. I'm gonna go back to exotic just because, I don't know. There's something about potpourri and exotic that I like with Asharra. Because I'm weird. So, let's see here. What are we gonna do? Nova is an excellent choice for exotic as a Air Ganassi. And of course, Narak will be an excellent choice as a exotic as well, being Githzerai. Let's just see where we're at. Yeah, so we're at 3 out of 3 for both, needing at least 1 more potpourri and 1 more exotic. Birdsong is an excellent exotic choice as a Tabaxi. So you can see, as getting 4 out of 4 for Paragon, she will now receive the bond. So we need 1 more potpourri. Let's see, who are we gonna throw in? I mean, we could just throw in Orkira. Thalora does count as potpourri, being the only centaur in the game. And you can make... Where is she? Going through another one. You can make Asharra count for a couple of these bonds. Oftentimes, the female non-binary will be an excellent choice for Asharra. So you can make her count for Thalora's decent buffing. And then, at this stage, we're 4 out of 4 for both, so you can either slot more of those races to slightly scale them up, or just fill it up with good buffers at that stage. We're gonna go ahead and just throw in Valentine, and let's throw in Penelope, another recent WeWork. She widow we got WeWorked, whoa. Okay, so just for the sake of what we're looking at here, I don't know why you hitting Narak's ult. So, Bond Potpourri up to an E15, 6 E15 for me. Exotic races up to an E16 as well. Or, yeah, close enough. Exotic is slightly higher because I have 5 instead of 4, so the 6 E15 to the 1 E16. She's receiving both of those and double dipping in the potpourri. So, as an early champion, core champion, who has the potential to scale pretty well, she's not a bad DPS. But she is restrictive in that she requires specific races to pop off. So if you're starting to hit harsher variants, you're gonna have a lot less options as far as your races go, and sometimes you're not even gonna be able to hit 4 out of 4 bonds, and that really hurts her. But yeah, pretty good as a core starting DPS. But again, as a core starter as well, you're probably not going to have the amount of races you need to even make her 4 out of 4. But, not too bad, not too bad. Now, let's look at her availability. That's not right. There we go. So, her availability isn't the greatest. Starting right out of the gate, she is neutral, so she will not be available for Mert. Her charisma is quite low, considering, but we'll take a look. She does have a charisma ability score increase in her feats, but no others. So she cannot increase that con to qualify for Vajra. She does have high int, so will be available for Strahd, and is naturally available even without that charisma feat for Zariel at 10 strength and higher charisma. But as she is a core champion, she will not be available for Elminster. And as far as day ones go, her dexterity and her constitution will lock her out, both being under 12, with no attribute feat. So 2 lockouts out of day 1 and 3 lockouts out of the patrons. Not the worst, no spurt levels, but still not the greatest. And personally, when it comes to a DPS, I find availability far more important. It's obviously important for everyone, but if you're looking to invest in a DPS, whether it be through legendaries or more item levels, in her case you wouldn't have to invest as many blacksmithing contracts, since she's a core champion and will receive loot through gold chests. But availability is so important if you're going to choose to dedicate to a DPS. And to me, that's just a slight bit restrictive, but not a bad starter champion for DPS. As far as where we placed her before, she was previously in the I believe like lower A- to the B+ range, and right, it's here. Let's see. Yeah, at the bottom of A-, kind of representing the very end of A or very high B. Sinister, what's up? I think she's gonna take a little bit of a dip. Let's see. Pre-stack reminder, Asharra slot 3 and 4. Buns. Yeah, with Paragon as well. I didn't go over her, what is it? Take flight. I guess I should mention it. Whenever the party is under attack, Asharra takes flight and increases her damage every 5 seconds, stacking multiplicatively up to 20 times. This is a slight boost to her damage, but it's nothing crazy, and it does require your party to be persistently under attack, which is not always viable, but it is a little boost to her damage as well. But yeah, Being a both DPS and support, have to rank her on both fronts. And in my case, the buff isn't terrible. It's not the best, but it's higher, slightly higher than average, depending on how many races you slot. And as a DPS, she does get a decent amount of buffs to be considered a DPS. And being core champion, you'll always be getting gear for her. Great starter, not the best availability, and fairly restrictive when slotting a formation for her. That's not correct. There we go. Previously had her in the lower A. The very end of A-. Where are we thinking now? I'm thinking, thinking she's probably going to take a bit of a hit. Don't know exactly where, though. My instinct is telling me maybe just behind the speedsters in B+. But I don't know. Behind Point, so you're thinking a little bit of a dip into the B-? Potentially. Because there's been a bit more DPSs that have come out. She even shares a slot with a popular DPS. I don't think that necessarily should affect her rank, but... I'm fiddling with a pen and dropped it. On my balls. Last B+ you're thinking too? That's my initial instinct, personally, was right behind Tholora. Which is still very close to the B- behind Point as well. That's kind of a very similar range. Before Regis? Just behind Kent? Or just behind Tholora? I do think right in that range we're all kind of thinking, though. It's a very, very tight section. Toyed. I do like the fact being a core champion DPS does mean you're going to reliably be getting gear for her, which is nice in your DPS. That availability does take a hit from her, though, and just being restrictive by nature, requiring a certain amount of races, potentially alleviated by glitch feats, and the roster is so expansive now you can make a lot work. But she will always need to take potpourri to do the whole double dip thing. I don't mind that, her being right behind Kent. And that's very close to where I originally foresaw her going. Yeah, we can put her there for now. I don't think that's too bad. Not much of a hit as far as her rank goes, honestly, but a little bit of a dip. And in the grand scheme of everything we've been getting since I ranked her, I don't think that's bad. Not at all. Okay. The question now is who next? Lot of options. We're just starting out. Anybody want to look at something in particular? Oh. Evelyn? We can take a peek at Evelyn. That's the wrong button. And we'll take a look at her specialization later. Evelyn recently got a rework and became much better than she was. She previously wasn't good. A very average tank and a below average buffer. Now, however, she can stack her buffing quite well. That buffing comes from Divine Prayer, increasing the damage of everyone behind her in the formation. Obviously, that will scale, but we'll go into how. Channel Divinity is one way. After Evelyn attacks an enemy, Divine Prayer is buffed by 100% for 15 seconds. I guess I should just dive right into her specializations. So, with that Divine Prayer in mind, she can, after an ally of Evelyn is attacked by an enemy, Divine Prayer is also buffed, or after Evelyn attacks an enemy that has recently attacked, Divine Prayer is buffed, or the effect of the bonus upgrades granted by Lathander's Grace is increased, and we'll get into that. This stacks for each Acquisitions Incorporated or C-Team or Waffle Crew in the formation. So if you take this, ideally you'll want to slot more of them. A lot of them have become better buffers. You don't need to fully slot out your formation with them to benefit from this specialization choice. But then the question is, what is Lathander's Grace? Every champion in the formation grants Evelyn Grace stacks for every 100 levels above their last unlockable upgrade that they are leveled. Each Grace stack increases the effect of Divine Prayer, stacking multiplicatively. Champions can contribute at most one Grace stack for every 400 areas completed in the adventure. So this very much scales with how far you can progress, as you both need to over-level champions and complete multiple instances of 400 areas. This does scale, in my opinion, at a decent rate in that it kind of happens when you're going to need it. So you are getting steady boosts through your progression. We'll go ahead and, for Lathander's allies, we'll just throw in some of the better buffers that you might be using if you choose to use her, like Omen, like Jim. And in this case, should we throw in anyone else? I mean, we could throw in Certainty. Maybe Strix and Vi. We'll throw in Certainty, Strix, and Vi, and leave it at that. How's everyone doing today? Let's just do this. I said level. Level. There we go. So that alone has boosted it up to an E24, as I have overleveled a few champions and slotted some of the Lathander's allies. Huge boost. Huge boost. And even just slotting other champions who I've overleveled that are not a part of this affiliation will scale that even higher. Whoa, that was not correct. You'll see just by slotting people who do not count for her specialization pick has boosted that to an E33 for me. Can get pretty girthy. But I have progressed pretty far. Where is it? I'm blind. Where is it? What am I even looking for? Oh, right, it doesn't actually show that, right. So yeah, at most one gray stack. I was looking for the areas completed, but I've progressed, I think this run, let me just look. I think it's 1900, so pretty deep. So I did increase that threshold, 18, but I did increase that threshold very high. So you're not always going to get numbers that big, but as a tank support, that just needs to be slot right in the front of the formation, buffing everyone behind her. Pretty good. But yeah, so she also has health share as a tank, has a health item, so she can scale her health. Oh man, earlier the schedule said 3:30. It shouldn't have. The schedule has always been for 11:30. I need to take a look at that. Or you can't read, that's also possible. What's up, Caius? Yeah, my goal is 11:30 PST, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, ongoing. So, yeah, I'll need to take a look at that. Saturday was an hour later when you checked? Well, now I just gotta look. Just to make sure things aren't going wonky. Because of where I live... Uh-oh, gonna get some echo. Because of where I live, I have to slot it as mountain, because where I live doesn't do daylight savings, so sometimes we're Pacific, sometimes we're mountain, but it auto-detects on my computer and I can't control that. So I have to put it in as mountain time, which is 12:30, but it's intended to be 11:30 Pacific. So there might be something that went wrong there. Let me see, though. I mean, it looks right on my side, but I'll take a look at it later. Anyway. Yeah, so, a pretty good overall champion can reach some really good buffing numbers as a tank. Not like a crazy tank, she has no further mechanic beyond increasing her health and health share, but that's standard for a tank. If your Artemis formation has Jim and Strix, is Evelyn good enough to consider for an Artemis formation? Potentially. She's definitely not going to be, like, probably your first pick, just because, you know, generally you want DPS who also offer formation abilities. However, being able to just slaughter in the front and buff everyone behind her isn't terrible for a tank to observe from. Absolutely. Yeah, lazy friendly, yeah. She is meta tank, probably the meta tank, yeah, probably, I guess. I would still recommend Belushi over her, but that's just because of, yeah, I don't know. She definitely is, yeah, probably. And trials when other champs get locked out. Yeah, no, just even thinking about it, of not having to do anything yet. And I can see, like, if you're not, I don't know. Yeah, that is an interesting one because Belushi does also scale as you push as well. And health share, yeah. No, good points. She is a decent tank, especially since you're probably using Jim, if not Jim and Strix already. 6 trials, all patrons, yeah, and we do need to look at that now, so we'll pop up the availability. So let's take a peek at that. So she is good, so she is available for Mert. Her con is naturally higher, so she will be available for Vajra. She does have... Does she have the +2? Yeah. She does have a +2 int feat, so she can become available for Strahd. And she naturally has a high strength and a high charisma, so will be available for Zariel. However, she did release 2,180 days ago, missing out on that threshold of 1,095 quite heartily. Not available for Elminster, but her very high overall ability scores will qualify her for every Trials Day 1. So she does have good availability, including feats, only missing out on Elminster. So, pretty good availability. And yeah, very high TOT. So yeah, pretty good overall, all things considered. Definitely would be decent for Artemis. I should tinker with her more in that scenario, but I've already invested in Belushi. At the end of the day, because yeah, they both scale with how far you can push. I think they will, one will take over the other at certain thresholds, for sure. But yeah. Very good overall. Oops. Whoop. It's not much weaker. Again, it really depends on the thresholds you've pushed. If you've reached that bracket of 400, because it would definitely be a teeter-totter which one is pushing ahead of the other based on your progression. But at the very end, if you can push to 2,000, she probably overtakes Belushi slightly. Especially if you're using Jim and Strix, both. So yeah, pretty good overall. Previously ranked very low, but then during her season, she got boosted up quite a bit, reaching, I believe, the A+. Let's pull up that list. Yeah. She might have even deserved to be a little higher than she ended up, but that's the point of this list. Very good availability, very good progressing damage, buffing as a tank, very good, easy to slot, reaches everyone behind her. I mean, she's even good for, she's good for Krond and Warduke if you're not an Artemis main as well, in that she has the strength to buff Krond and a very easy to work with positional for Warduke, requiring to just not be behind her. So yeah, overall, very useful. Alright, I said Krond, but she's not available for Krond because they share a seat. That was dumb. But easy for Warduke. Duh. I told you it's going to be one of those days. But let's take a look at the tier list. I usually don't make slot conflicting mistakes like that. That's funny. So made it into the A+ before. She can reach very high numbers. And I would say restrictive in who she can use, in that she scales best with her affiliation, but she really doesn't require all of them to pop off. So if you want to reach peak numbers with her, slightly restrictive, but you don't even need to get peak numbers with her. Very good. I'm seeing her buddy Omen. And do I consider her on par or better than Omen? I think I probably... You think Vi and Jim being so strong works in her favor? Yeah, that's one thing with Vi, is she does get very good numbers, but being non-positional these days does kind of suck for her, but... She goes where blue she goes. If you think A+ is too high, then blue she is too high. I am more wondering if Omen even deserves a buff up, actually. It's kind of where I was going with that. Wondering if Omen deserves a boost up to the A+ at the end. Maybe even just above Spurt. Then 1 or 2 of Gale. Yeah, I mean, she does kind of serve a very similar purpose to Blueshie. I think Blueshie is good because she's evergreen, so you don't have to invest blacksmithing contracts in her, while serving the same purpose and being available for just about everything, and counting as a deady. That's a fair point, Senux, that Omen probably needs higher favor to really pop off, whereas Ev can just be slotted and goated. But again, she scales with how far you can progress, so if you're very early, she's probably not putting up the greatest numbers either, though. But I do think she's very good. And Antreus, well, great. So restrictive in his positioning. Your tier list is plain inflating. I thought you said infuriating. You're with Caius, Blueshie, and Evelyn, A- just to retain meaning in the tiers. Bugged Omen. Just thinking it all over. Bear with you for a second. Blueshie has a strong buff for a tank, but she's not really a tank. Not having health share makes her not a tank. She's best described as a support, and her buff is only A- for a support. Because Blueshie, again, is evergreen, so that actually helps her a lot in gearing up. She can qualify for just about every DPS in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, Blueshie is also one of the only magical tanks, which is another big thing. You're thinking average champions are average on average, right? Meaning there are as many champions worse than average as there are better. Evelyn's a good buffer, and can take a hit, but isn't exceptional. She's more than just a good buffer, though. If you stack her up, she's a great buffer. Not just I mean, her numbers exceed most of the people on the list at this point, other than pre-stackers, for the most part. Belushi has a kind of health share where all champions gain a percentage of her spirit form's health. Yeah, it's not necessarily going to reach the average health share, but Belushi is. She just has so many more little things going in her favor. I could, Belushi has a taunt too. Yeah, and she wants to take the hit to go spirit form, which doubly helps there. This one is a little more difficult. That's why I'm staying so much on it, just thinking about multiple things. Man, this one is a bit tougher for sure. Evelyn has a taunt as well, that being standardized as the purple tank feat. I do think it's slightly more important in Belushi's case, just in that you want her to take the hit to go spirit form, but yeah. I feel like you guys underestimate how easy it is to get them item levels for Frog. It's nice slotting someone that doesn't need to eat your contracts. Yeah, and I think being evergreen definitely is nice for Belushi. I mean, that just means she will always be ready and competitive, and reaches great numbers. While being a magical tank, that counts as a Dedi. She has a lot going for her, just mechanically, soft mechanics. Whereas Evelyn is a great slot and go tank that reaches great numbers, with great availability, but Belushi also has great availability. She doesn't, I mean, everyone needs item levels if you want to scale, but she does have better numbers than average starting out. This one is tough, man. I think we're gonna leave it like this for now, but it's definitely one to look at again after we finished today, and we'll keep it in the back of our minds for now. I think I mean, probably, I don't know. I'm sure I have actual literal autism, never been diagnosed. It's mostly I just have to make noise to think. So lane 261, and she has one of my better options pretty much always. And she's definitely on the better end, even with lower investment, but again, when you're looking to invest in a team, everyone needs investment to pop off. But and again, we're arguing the A pluses here, and I'm not saying either of them are bad, but I do think Belushi has more niche utility and compatibility with other people in different types of formations than Evelyn does, and is a good option for both of the DPS that Evelyn shares a seat with that can't even buff if one of them are your DPS. But yeah, we'll think about it. We'll leave them there for now and think about it more as we go. I'm definitely thinking about that one though. Oh no, too many blues. Whoop. Oh. Both are great. Evelyn is easier. Not wrong. Not like blue, she's hard though. Blue, she is in a better seat. Yeah, I think she is as well. However, we're gonna move on for now. We will, remind me if I forget, we will look at that at the end and scratch our butts and heads a little more. But for now, let's move on and not linger too much on that. Do we want to look at... I need to let go of this pen. I keep dropping it on my balls. Who do we want to look at next? Who do we want to argue over next and end up hating each other? Coffee one gone. Alyndra and... Oh, Reya. We'll look at Reya first and then move on to Alyndra. Hello, Ovium. How you doing? Alyndra. Interesting champion. Very interesting. Probably one that's gonna take a dip. But... let's take a look. Part of the Heroes of the Plains, which is important to note for her because she can scale the other champions within her affiliation. But we'll go into how. One of the problems with her is Portent. Her main buff isn't the greatest. Every 30 seconds, Alyndra randomly chooses up to 3 champions, naturally 2, with a spec choice 3 will go into her specializations, and peers into their futures, helping guide their attacks, increasing their damage by a lower amount. You've never used Alyndra for anything meaningful, but you have fond feelings for Alyndra because how good she was at Season Milestone Cheese. Yeah, she was good when she first came out and maintained a pretty good slot for magic DPS users, but I feel like she's kind of been overshadowed these days. But useful for rapid fire whittle, yeah. But again, I don't think it's that hard to reach the attack speed reduction cap. But her owl companion sits on her shoulder and judges enemies as they spawn. They have a chance to judge normal enemies unworthy and a guarantee to judge bosses. For each living unworthy normal champion or normal enemy, Portent's base buff is increased, stacking additively. Each living boss increases Portent's base by E5 versus E4. So this will scale Portent up. That's why you see it dipping back and forth, as if she's judging. It won't scale hard, but it does scale up to at least an average buff. Better than just being a lower buff. No, but 2 and 6 were convenient for attack. Yeah. For sure. Especially for Dirge lately, you think? However, if Portent is applied to a champion under the effect of Heroes of the Plains abilities, those effects are increased. So, for example, if a champion she is portenting is affected by Averon's mirror image, it will be increased. If you have Unlucky for Them, being increased for each portented champion affected by Luck of the Yandala. Stacking multiplicatively, so scales with Freely's debuff. Penelope's Chewing Gum Mask, which has changed recently. Tools for the job increased for each champion affected by Chewing Gum Mask. Stacking multiplicatively. Briv's Netherese Steel will be increased. Orkira's Elemental Fire will be increased for each champion under the effect of Lesser Restoration. So you want more people being healed by Orkira to scale that up. And Vampiric Gaze effects on the portented champion are increased. Whew, so she buffs up her entire affiliations kit. Again, early on, they were an excellent affiliation. A lot of them still put up a good fight. Averon has kind of been overshadowed these days, but he's still very good. Freely's debuffs are still very good. Getting Whittle's attack speed reduction, as people have been talking about, is still useful. Orkira's debuff is still good. So, I mean, a lot of these things are still great if you're using them in your formation, which a lot of them have been phased out of a lot of people's formations, instead favoring positional buffs. So that knocks out Freely, that knocks out Averon. So yeah, that actually probably is why they've been phased out as much, is because a lot of them just aren't positional. And a lot of affiliations, or formations these days require positional buffs. So, her utility to the group hinges on her being placed with at least some of her formation. But again, she's still, as a magic user, her main attack is magical. She can find a position in a magical-based team, and you'll still potentially use Evelyn freely and or Kira in a magical team. So, there is some utility to Alyndra. I just feel like she's one of those that has suffered from the champions that have been coming out lately. But we'll look at her availability. And we'll look at her specializations first, actually. Then go into availability. Because her specialization choice is quite simple. Where is she? There she is. So you will either choose to apply Portent to up to 3 champions instead of 2. She is 2 naturally. In this formation, you might stick with 2. Put her right here, have her next to 2 people. As anywhere else you slot her in this formation will put her at more than 3. You'll be adjacent to 4. So she might not apply it to an adjacent DPS champion in that case. But you'll usually take 3, because that scales other things. Double Griff's chance to judge enemies unworthy, so she's more reliably judging enemies as they spawn, and will increase that buff as well by a small amount. So it kind of depends on the formation you're running, but yeah, let's take a look at her availability. So, she is neutral, not available for Mert, has the 14 con to be available for Vajra, but looking through her feats, she does not have any ability score increases, so keep that in mind. Does have the int to be qualified for Strahd, has too little of strength to be qualifiable for Zariel, and came out 1,151 days ago, so just breaches out of that 1,095 days and is not available for Elminster, and because of that low strength, she will not be available for that Day 1 Trials restriction, but is available for all of the others. So locked out of 3 out of the 5 patrons and 1 of the 6 Day 1 Trials restrictions. So not the worst, but not great availability. As far as where I previously had her in my tier list, I believe she was kind of in the flat A. Where's that list? Boop. So, yeah, she was in the A-, more meant to represent the A. I do think she's going to take a little bit of a dip. Her usefulness has definitely been dwindling instead of becoming better as time has gone on. Let's, I do want to see what that Portent will get up to once she's able to stack it up a little bit at least, before we rank her. Just gonna go somewhere where Briv can take some hits, and she can just sit there applying Portent on enemies. We'll go to a boss area because that's more indicative of what you'll probably see from her numbers. Yeah, you can see this debuff here is the judge. So she's only judged, she guarantees it on a boss, and only judged 2, in this case it looks like. And that has raised her Portent to only an E11. But yeah, so count it as 6, increasing it by an E5. So again, doesn't scale it crazy at all. Get that fully leveled. So, are her affiliation numbers high enough for B? Well, let's pull up the list. I do feel like she's definitely going to take a hit. High enough for B. If so, it would be the lower B based on this list, I think. Like even behind Veronica. Well, I can see her being almost considered Veronica-like in a weird way. Because Veronica... I mean, she doesn't necessarily depend on her affiliation, though. But yeah, Alyndra very much does depend on at least having some of her affiliation, freely or Kira, ideally, maybe Evelyn. But again, a lot of those champions have been phased out of mainstay formations. Isn't quite as important as they used to be. But they're still good. They're still good. Just not cream of the crop these days. So, by herself, she's not a great buffer. She's just not. With those champions, can be decent. So it's restrictive to just be decent. But she can squeeze into magical based DPS formations. Compare with Desmond? See, but Desmond has the ability of popping off hard. Potentially. Didn't use her for a long time, yeah. Thank you for the follow, Arcus Satorius. How you doing? E11 is C tier, main buff. Howdy ho, Arcus. Yeah, and that's why we want to take into consideration her ability of boosting the likes of Evelyn, Freely, Penelope, or Kira. But is that enough to really bump her up? Like, my initial instinct, again, is like very bottom of B-, almost dipping into C, just because she has synergy with those champions. But if we were just ranking her, just her as her own buff, she's dipping into like C-. Potentially even D. But I think she has enough overall out of her kit to keep her out of D. But does she go into C? Maybe in the higher C? Okay, so here's my two thoughts initially is just behind Veronica or just behind Solok, which are two very different ranks, but I'm just trying to gauge how important she is pairing with Freely, Evelyn, or Kira. You were thinking C+, yet the end of C+, I don't hate for her. Because her importance has definitely dwindled. The importance of those she synergizes with has slightly dwindled. It's time to start coffee, too. Come on. She belongs with Quillick. And that's the thing, I think she has slightly more utility than Quillick, even if Quillick's base buff is slightly higher than hers. Because she does give some shenanigans with Whittle's attack speed buffing. She can scale the debuff of Kira and Freely, and buff Evelyn's mirrors. I think the bottom of C+ might be where she goes. Yeah, that's a huge dip, though. Her being in the A- down to C+. That's just the progression of time and how they make the game, though. She's magic support in a seat without a lot of magic, and that's true. But I would even, unless you're using Freely, Evelyn, and or Kira in a magic team, I would probably take Asharra even over her as a support, if that was an option for a magic team at this point. But which DPS is she useful for, though? And that's kind of the problem, is unless you're using, like... That's the thing, I don't even know anymore. I mean, potentially a Farida, but even then, that's kind of iffy. Because you generally want more tieflings for Farida. Like, she just... yeah, I mean, again, Dirge, because it could be magical, but you're looking for Ceramorphosis. Potentially Prudence. But yeah, again, we're not talking a lot of DPS she's actively usable for these days. So yeah, I see her taking a dive. Well, I think that's a good spot for her for now. She shares a slot with Shart. Very rarely would you take her. Oh yeah, and yeah, absolutely, Parada. I was just musing who she could even be used for. That's decent, but yeah. Yeah. It's rough. It's rough out there for a... I forget what her race is. I know she's elf-based. Is it just elf? Gotta get back in there. High elf. Okay. Very, very pale high elf. I always think she's supposed to be something else when I look at her. Some other variant of elf. Yeah, I think the bottom of C+ is a decent place for her now. Unfortunate to see a dip whenever we see one, but so it goes. Who was next? We had someone next. Oh, Reya. That's right, Reya. Reya's an interesting one. Evergreen champion like Blushi. So, like we were saying with her, it is always great to have Evergreen, who will just scale off gold champions, and her numbers get decent. Shart can't be used in Strahd, so in that situation you've used her. You love how they put in high elf instead of high elf, or elf high instead of high elf. It sounds less race definition and more like a state of mind. She's an elf that happens to be high. Yeah, so Reya, she imbues adjacent champions with her Searing Radiance, causing their attacks to deal blank more damage. This has ways to scale. It gets to a decent buff. Right now sitting at a lower average buff. But Fiends become her favorite foe and take more damage from Reya and adjacent champions. With Echoes of Zariel is the primary way you're going to scale Searing Radiance. The gaze of Zariel turns from Reya and sweeps across the formation, looking at a random number of unique champions before returning to Reya. Once it returns to Reya, it increases the effect of Searing Radiance for each champion it looked at, including Reya, stacking multiplicatively. Now you can tinker with this a bit with her. Hello? Where is she? Where is she? Am I blind? Oh no! Am I gonna have to go to the seat? I literally don't see her. There she is. Wow! Wow. So, Echoes of Zariel is guaranteed to look at all good aligned champions in the formation before returning to Reya, or guaranteed to look at all lawful. So you're just going to take whichever one is more populated within your affiliation. We'll go ahead and slot a bunch of, nope, wrong button. We'll slot a bunch of goods in here. You're good right now, right? Yeah. And, we'll see what it looks at, after looking at a full formation of good champions. You're good, right? No, you're neutral. Why'd I think you were good? Let's go, Naily. Yeah, lawful good. Level up, Krydle. Do it. Do it. Chaotic good, yep. Brave as Goog. Cadbury. Hitch is chaotic good, right? Yeah. We're just looking for good boys and girls. Diana's good, yeah? Yeah. How can you not be from that affiliation? And Strix. Sure. So, now we've got a whole bunch of good. We'll slot good. As you'll see, it's now 10 out of 10. And we'll let that Searing Radiance pop off and see what that ends up at. There it goes. You see the Ray of Light looking at everyone. So right now we're boosting it up to an E18. That's a pretty decent buff. Not the greatest in the game, but pretty decent, especially for an Evergreen, just simply adjacent buffer. That being said, actually, well, we'll look at this first. She also does have Celestial Champion. All lawful aligned champions' damage is increased and all good aligned champions' damage is increased. You will double dip if you are lawful good. So, there are a few champions who qualify for that. Let me pull up a list so I don't miss anyone. I remember a big one, it was just like, what, Binwin and Drizzt? Who else is lawful good? Where is it? Where is she? That's gonna be stuck in my head now. My God, where is it? Roll DPS. So yeah, we're looking at, Crux. Yeah, so Binwin, Crux, and Drizzt. And yeah, Dirge with a specialization pick will qualify as well. That's true. Is that where I have him right now? Yeah, resist the urge. So he becomes lawful good. So Dirge can actually qualify for, he is just in there, for that double dip. And we'll take a look at that. That shows up in the incoming effects, right? Yeah, Celestial Champion. So he is receiving both that E6 and that E6. So we're talking, if you're a lawful good user, you're getting 2 different instances of an E6 buff on top of her Searing Radiance and E18. Altogether, that's not too bad. But that is restrictive as far as the Celestial Champion goes. But as long as you can at least qualify for one of them, that's still pretty good to get an E6 on top of an E18, especially considering an Evergreen Champion. Not too bad. So, yeah. For an Evergreen, not bad, not bad. Was there something I missed with her? No, I think... So yeah, that is her kit. Ooh, still hot. We will look at her availability. Ooh, hot coffee. So, being good, she is available for Mert, and we'll look at her attributes. She does not have any feats for attributes, but with a TOT of 88 and a pretty decent spread, she's available for pretty much everything. Got the 14 Con for Vajra, 13 Int for Strahd, 10 Strength, and 13 Charisma for Zariel. She's got that in spades, by the way. But she did release 1,137 days ago, so just out of reach of Elminster. However, available for every Day 1 Trials restriction. So, at the end of the day, only locked out of Elminster. Good availability. Positional buff plus lawful buff for Artemis is pretty good. Yeah, she's not terrible for Artemis. If you use her, you do need her to be adjacent to as many DPS as possible, which can be kind of restrictive in how you position. But I wouldn't say she's ideal for Artemis, but not bad. So yeah, but overall, pretty decent champion. We previously had her ranked fairly high, not super high though. She was in like the B range, I believe. Let's take a look. Okay, she was just in the B minus, so kind of, yeah, like a flat B. And by today's standards, I don't necessarily know if she's going to change much. Let's take a look at what we're looking at there, though. So like a flat B range. You used her a lot for, I'm guessing you meant good, or lawful only variants. Yeah, she absolutely does pop off in those because she naturally synergizes with those variants. I think she is a good example of what I do think kind of like a good standard champion should be. If you're looking for something that doesn't necessarily excel but can have a niche, but is also just a good standard, I think she's like a good champion. Never will be an amazing champion, but a good champion. She doesn't quite... Somewhere below Ashe? That's actually where I was going. I was looking at Regis and Puent, and I'm thinking, does she go ahead of or behind them? That's where my mind was going. And she can if you're using lawful or good, generally reach their numbers. If you're only relying on Searing Radiance, maybe not. So it's kind of situational. This music is almost too peaceful. It calms me down. It doesn't get me all rearing to go. That's the question. Do I see her more here? Or do I see her more here? That's where I'm dancing between these two positions. She does look neat next to Asharra. Double wings. Now, is it mean of me that I see Nigel in her face? Smashing. Split the difference. You want her between Regis and Puent? There's something with my OCD and autism brain that I like if they're close enough to keep affiliations tight together. Which again, Puent isn't necessarily a companion, but you know. But then that brings into question... No. I don't hate that. We could put her there for now. I think that's about where she... Yeah, I don't think she really moves a whole lot. She's one of those that... She's just a good standard, you know? So, are you necessarily going to focus on her? Maybe, probably not. But, I mean, she can be used in Artemis. Again, not going to be ideal. But she can be used for Warduke. She's not too bad for Warduke. Easy to slot for him. But he is, chaotic evil, so he doesn't take the lawful, at least. Is he? Yeah, he's chaotic. Right? Wait. Yeah, right? Am I tripping up? Am I confusing myself? Yeah, chaotic evil. Okay. He is, yeah. I thought so, but there was something in my brain that was like, no, he's not. Because I doubt myself in every decision I've ever made in my life. All right. Just because he's out now, I gotta level him up. So, level up. There we go. Who next? There's a few that I see that are probably going to take a dip. One that's going to be very hard to rank. A lot of options still. Shandie, Krond, Krull, Knox, Fen, DM, Shart. I'll pick one if no one wants to look at one in particular, but shout it out if you do. God, this thing keeps the coffee hot. Whew! Burning my tongue over here. Sergeant Knox. Let's take a look at Knoxy boy. Knox is an interesting one, in a not so great way. I like him, and I wish he was better. That's where I'm at with Knox. So, let's take a look at his kit. I guess oh well. Rallying Cry. Increase the damage of champions in the columns behind Knox. Agreed, disappointing, demoted to Corporal. Knox is easy to rank. He's Evelyn, but weaker. A lot weaker. But he increases the damage of everyone behind him. He does have health share. Yeah, well, I should have gone over his specialization first, because I think it tinkers with the description. Oh no, there he is. Smashing. So, Rallying Cry, his main buff, now stacks multiplicatively, with buffs applying to the post-stack value, but its base percentage, my burnt tongue, is decreased by 35%. Or Altruistic Rally. Increase the effect of Celeste's Crusader's Mantle and Makos' Dark Blessing abilities by 100% each. That's not a huge boost at the end of the day. If they're both buffing for one E10, they're now buffing for 2 E10. So really, the only time you'll ever take it is if you're very new to the game, have just unlocked Knox, and you're still using Celeste and Makos. Or in an extremely restrictive variant where it's just them available, which is incredibly rare, you're probably not going to take that. Or you can increase his max health, which therefore increases his health share. Knox deserves a pre-stack. He does. He really does. There are a bunch of arty users who use Knox in their main party. Nowadays, though, with Evelyn sharing a seat with him, I just can't recommend that. He has an event variant that says, use the... Oh, Celeste Mako spec? Yeah, I'm sure his event variant, because variants usually focus on specific niches within their kit. But at the end of the day, just baseline, you're not gonna take that spec if you're just using him most of the time. But yeah, like, who was it? Dynahair? I definitely think Explosive Rally should be like Dynahair's pre-stack specialization spec. That would help him a lot, but at any rate, so if you take that one, though, you do want to have multiple positionals out there. So yeah, let's just get some positionals out. Get a basic amount of positionals. You're all positional. You're positional. You're on top right now. Actually, she doesn't have the dex, does she? Yeah, no. So, let's just do Miria. Just looking to throw out some positionals to scale that up. I guess we can go Certainty. And Rakshur. So we're throwing a bunch on Karlach. Let's see what that got up to for her. Rallying Cry. She's affected by 12 positionals, and it has only increased it to an E11. Yeah, not the greatest. Because you would think he scales well with positionals, right? And if he did, if that 35% was even a pre-stack, right? But it just, there's no way to scale it. It's to the flat, and that flat buff just ain't great. Yeah, he really needs something to buff him up, because that's his kit. But, I mean, he does increase the damage of all champions for each enemy attacking him. But again, let's wipe the board and put him with Briv so he can actually survive a couple hits. That's not gonna scale up that crazy. Maybe around here. Oh, my, lol. So again, that's a... And tank... Well, Briv is going to be taunting, but that's a flat 100% with no way to scale it, and it's additive. So, I mean, we're not talking big boost here. And him to survive long enough to scale this up to really matter, But with the tank so he doesn't die, yeah. Knockback is his only redeeming feature, and that's fair to mention. Is it his ult, right? Knox swings in an arc, knocking nearby enemies back, damaging and stunning them for 2 seconds. He then leaps at a random enemy and swings his axe in an overhead blow, dealing even more damage and stunning enemies in the area, so he does have a knockback with a stun, which, if I didn't have Higher Bud, that would have been a stun. It's just... It's rough on him, you know? When he's supposed to scale with positionals with the one specialization, And he's only boosting, what, a natural E9 to an E11 with probably the most roughly, you know, in the rough range. It's just not good. It's just not a good buff. It's a bad buff. But we'll take a look at his availability. He does need a little love. Although his availability is quite good, as he is good, he is available for Mert. He does have, let's look at his, so he does have an int 1 that will qualify him for Strahd. Naturally available for Vajra. I believe that's his only ability score increase, yeah. And then he does have the Strength and Charisma for Zariel. He released 1,045 days ago, so he is still qualifying for Elminster, but Elminster will phase him out in what, like 50 days? So he won't be for much longer. However, he does have a decent TOT, and it's a decent spread on top of that, so he will be available for every Day 1 Trials restriction. So including the feat for Strahd, he is currently available for everything. So good availability. Are you necessarily going to fall back on him? Probably not, unless you're very restricted. But, yeah. Availability with a bad kit, it's nice to be there, but you still have a bad kit. But a tank, sometimes you just need a tank. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a buff. That's just kind of how I feel about Knox. I want him to be better, but he's not great. As far as where we put him before, let's take a look at the list. I believe he was low C. In the C plus is where he made it before. I mean, he is at least a tank and easy to position with good availability, just not a good buff. Now let's take at the current list. Where would that throw him these days? Man, my instinct... Is he better than Nerds? The only thing that pushes Nerds above him is Nerds does have a place in some formations, like an Artemis team, like if you're using Will to hyper buff them, being 4 out of 4 for classes. They have some actual niche uses, whereas Knox doesn't even have a niche use. He's just a tank with a bad buff and good availability. But being a tank with good availability means you might use him in severely restrictive runs. Somewhere in the C-, you think? I was kind of looking at lower C-. I don't know if I want to quite dip him into D, because he, again, at least is a tank with good availability. And every now and then that will matter. Every now and then. Not often, though. Especially when, again, Evelyn has pretty good availability herself and will just be better than him. Near Naeli. He's better than D. Yeah, I think he edges out of D, but I think he belongs in C-. I mean, yeah. He's better than Naeli? That's a tough sell. I think they're pretty close. Because Naeli is core, so you don't need to invest in her. She doesn't scale well, mind you. Absolutely not. Maybe he is, though. Yeah. Because he does naturally slightly buff higher than her, even though she can scale it up a bit. But he also scales with being damaged like she does. She buffs better in that regard. Man, they are very close, though. He does have better availability than her, though. So maybe he does edge out just right in front of Naeli. Maybe. His buff extends further. Yeah, that's true. He's a lot easier to slot. And if you are an Artemis team in a restrictive run, he can be good for that. Again, Evelyn is just a better version of him, so if you have Evelyn, you'll use her instead. And while I don't like usually comparing two champions in the same seat and just ranking them based on their kit, they are so similar enough to where it is hard not to. But Even ranking him just on his kit alone, I think he belongs in the C-. If he could just get a pre-stack to that, the rallying cry, whatever that specialization was called. What was it? I'm tripping. Always twipping. Twipping, whoa. Explosive rally. It would be nice to see this get a pre-stack and a way to scale it in his gear. But that will be if we ever get a rework for him, and I don't think that's even in the thought process right now, but who knows? I don't know. At this stage, though, yeah, it's hard to recommend him in that seat to be any kind of a focus. Not the worst, but not good. Yeah, unfortunate. But I think that's where he belongs. So who next? Already seat 6, yeah, we're flying. How you doing, Kraken? The eye patch is a big plus too. Again, him being an actual character in Neverwinter, right? And I just like his design in general too. Good, thanks. Hope all is well on your end. Good enough. We'll just say that. DM next. We can look at DM. He's definitely a hard one to rank. Dungeon Master. I got him in that wacky skin right now. We'll throw him into his OG. Oh, you want to fight, huh? DM. We'll just run through his kit. So, like Dirge, Dungeon Master is eligible to start in all adventures, even if the patron, variant, or other restrictions would say otherwise. And this is absolutely his niche, is being available for everything, because he can pull in another champion with his specialization pick. We'll go over that in a second, though. Dungeon Master increases the damage of all champions by 100%. For each champion in the formation that is 20 years or younger, stacking multiplicatively. If the sum of the 6 youngest champions' ages is 100 years or less, the bonus is increased, post-stack, so not crazy scaling at all. And in general, not going to be the best buff in the game by any stretch. We'll slot in a couple youngsters, cause DM kinda sus. Who were we just talking? Oh yeah, I was talking about someone with Quillic, that's right. Because Quillic is 3. He can pull in S tier. Presto. Oh, I haven't let dirt. Let's see, Sentry is quite young, right? Yeah, 13. And then Warden is quite young. At what? 12. Doesn't matter. Oh, let's see. From here, where are we going? Nova's... Or, well, I already have Warden in. Spurt? Yeah, Spurt's a good option. What is he? Days, right? Yeah, 11 days. Oh, Spurt. Never in another game will you see the death of an 11-day-old die over and over and over. Kobold, all kobolds are young. How is Deacon? 28. I'm looking for that 20 mark, but I do, yeah, Human should be. Oh. Never mind. Wait, what? Why did I not know that? Huh? If Dirge had a human feat, you think DM might be A+ tier? I don't know. Again, he's sharing a seat with a Ceramorphosis user, so. And a good one at that, but we'll get to that soon. I need to look up at a list here to see who is under 20. Because I am drawing a blank. Maximum 20. Okay. We got Dahani is quite young, that's right. Whew, it's getting hot in here. Oh, gee, dirt, already there. He's clearly not a kobold, duh. All three combined, that makes sense. Only today rewatched the fan-based end of Dungeons & Dragons cartoon based on the script. Is 35 plus years considered spoilers? I don't think so, but... Shart is excellent, Will is better, if you had to choose. See, but if you're using dirt, you're not choosing, you're using both. Right? So why are you choosing anyway between the two? Anyway, let's see. Havilar and Farida, I guess. Pair them together. Just for the sake of looking at his buff. So we're at 19 and 19, which makes sense why they would be the same age. I don't know why I looked twice. Restrictive variants, it's been a choice for me before. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of DM's niche, right, is restrictive variants. So I see what you're saying, but yeah. So, we're talking 9 champions, an entire formation, fitting this description, and receiving this 100 years or less. All of that as good as we can possibly get it, and he's buffing an E12. Not a great buff. Do I have mad item levels in him? No, he's an average of like 350 to 400, somewhere in that range. But still, E12, not a good buff. We're inching into like the lowest of the middle ground buffing at his peak, so not good. That being said, he does also add temporary hit points to the entire party upon entering an area when Dungeon Master is present, and that matters because he has a chance to not join the formation, disappearing, and instead, Uni, the unicorn, will take his position in the formation. It's not going to be good even with levels yet. No, he doesn't scale well. His damage buffing just isn't good. His guild find. Seeing that makes me think of Final Fantasy if it was guild find. But yeah, obviously you meant gold find, but yeah. The problem with his gold find is, we'll just go over Disappearing Act. Upon entering a new area, there is a 75% chance that's affected by specialization choices. I'll go over that. That Dungeon Master does not appear in the formation and is replaced by a frightened Uni the Unicorn. While Dungeon Master is away, the formation's gold find is increased. If you return to a previously completed area, Dungeon Master will always be in the formation. While his gold find isn't terrible, you have to get lucky to get Uni in the zone you want to farm gold if you're looking to farm gold. And if you even go back once, Uni's not coming back. So getting Uni in your formation for when you want to farm isn't exactly the best way to go about it, but it's not terrible. You're using him purely to pull in a proper buffer and try to hit 1600 for Nixie's tier 4, yeah. It's a pain, but on Z2000 usually usable. That's the thing, is you just can't rely on it, which makes it kind of iffy. And he shares a seat with another good gold find, but that character's gold find is hard to work around too sometimes. But so he can heal, he can offer gold find, iffy on the gold find, and his buffing just isn't good. No matter what you do, his buffing isn't good. But that is countered by his availability, and I'm not in a restrictive variant, so it's not going to pull up, but just for the sake of doing it. When you choose his specializations, he will have these two choices always, reducing the chance of him joining and increasing Uni's chance of joining, or alternatively, the chance he leaves and stays in the formation higher to rely on the temporary hit points as you progress, so you're trying to get either Uni for the gold find, or him for his progression. But when you're in a variant that is restrictive or locking out other champions, there will be a third option, and it will be a complete chance. It does favor seats that have no one available, not always though, but is completely RNG who it will be a choice between for someone who is locked out of that run. This is basically everything for DM. He is available for everything, and he can pull in someone at random. In insanely restrictive variants, this is very important, or getting incredibly lucky, getting Briv or a very useful speed champion that's locked out, available for a run they're not otherwise available. It can be... DM is one where if you're relying on his buffing, or his gold find or his healing, he's probably not going to put up. But he will always be useful because he can pull someone else in a restrictive variant. I will always recommend people having him in their roster. I will probably never recommend someone investing item levels into him. He's an ace with everything else fails, then go fishing. And that, yeah, like, you can pull up the specialization, see who he pulls in. Oh crap, it's Jamila. Stop that run, re-rinse the run, and keep rolling until you get something suitable. Either someone you've invested in or a role you absolutely need for that run. He is good for that. Will his buffing ever be good? No. So it is a give and take, but he is absolutely clutch in very restrictive variants. So he always has that use. So because of that, it's hard to rank, right? Will I recommend people unlocking him? Absolutely, always. Will I ever recommend people investing in him? No, probably never. So yeah, he is a tool, and not in a not in an insulting way. He is literally a tool to pull in someone else. Nah, run it with Jamila hard mode time. I mean, if you have no other DPS, but I swear, I have notoriously bad luck in games. My RNG is awful. If bad things can happen to me, they will. It's not only Murphy's Law, it's Murphy has a sniper rifle to my head, right? And DM very much fits in that way for me. He will always pull just garbage champions. I have to reroll so much to get something that's useful. I don't know if that's intentional in the game, or if that's just my bad RNG. You think he favors Jamila-Xander? Yeah, and that exactly, Sinister. I don't know if that's intentional, that he tends to pull from lower champions more often than not. I kind of feel like that's coded in, if I'm being my conspiracy theory hat on. But I also have notoriously terrible RNG in games. Drop rates, percentages. I hate RNG. I love RNG mechanics. I never use them if I can get away from it in like an MMO class or something. Because RNG just, woof, it's a woof to me, man. And we would look at his availability, but we don't need to. He's available for everything. Doesn't matter. They're all question marks anyway. I do believe, though, I think they count as 18, right? As far as mechanics go, when you need to rely on this person's ability score is blank. I believe he counts as 18, and I believe his age counts as 1001. If you need the hard mechanics for that, I believe. But as far as his availability, he's just available. So we don't need to go over that at all. So... Not as legendaries to 10 across the board since my trials team already hits 2,000. And yeah, I mean, if you're like at the very end of the game and you want to invest in him, you can. But before having a solidified team, I would not recommend investing in him. I mean, he has some... Every now and then he might have some... I mean, you can throw him in a magic-based team. But again, we have put his buff to the best it can possibly be. E12, the best it can possibly be. Woof. And in the spirit of ranking things based on everything they are, that does affect him in my opinion. A lot of people don't like that, but previously I had him ranked in, I believe it was high B? Yeah, he's in the B plus range. And I mean, again, will always, like with a little asterisk, will always be useful. I do recommend unlocking him fairly early because he will help in any restrictive variant. He is an important champion to have. That being said, his buff sucks butt, so that has to be considered when ranking him. And it's weird he likes so many young people, right? Like that shit. So let's take a look at the current list. And where to move this old man. You like him as a tool S, his buff C-, and that's kind of where my mind has always gone with him, and that's why he ends up in a B for me. To average those things out. His utility, incredibly important. I would always recommend unlocking him. Yeah, but if you put generic legendaries on him, his buff doesn't matter, and he's always useful. He's always useful, but you don't always need him. You know, that's the problem, is he's useful for variants, absolutely. And, you know, in that scenario, he can be worth a little investment, sure. But ranking just based on their kit. He's always been he's one of the few where I've almost wanted to make a unique bracket. I don't even know what I'd call it, but near Veronica because you hate fishing. Yeah, I think he has a lot more useful than Veronica, because even if you just need to fill a slot in a restricted variant, whip him out and take whoever he pulls out, if you don't even want to fish for it, right? Ugh. Must have niche use, yeah. Rather niche for ultra restrictions. Thank you for the follow, Verdicts. How you doing? This buff is a lot better than no champions due to restrictions, yeah. Just don't unlock Binwin or Brig, and you can get Artie easy every time. Specifically lock out champions so they don't compete in the seat. Near Dadia so they can form the Bald Guys Club. Is that a knock against me? I'm bald. I shave. You'd never... I don't know. I am thinking somewhere in the B+, B-. I think... yeah, he is a weird one to rank. He does almost seem interesting right behind speed champions. Special use bracket. Many other champs have that you can pull in. Some others agree with your previous comment. It's a pain to do. Reroll till you get what you're after. Yeah. One minus about him is even if you finish the right champ, he blocks a slot in your formation. Yeah, and that's why you would only really use him in those restrictive runs if you really need to fill a slot. B- for you. You laugh, but you skipped out on unlocking Brig during his event because of that. I mean, I do laugh because ideally you want to unlock everyone, but yeah, it if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty. Because his buff doesn't put up, that's just a fact. And there are people below him that buff better than him if we put him here. But his niche usefulness can be huge. And right behind speed champions, that puts him, you know, right behind a speed formation and utility. And that could be an okay spot for him. He just is a hard one. Very unique. Very funny looking. And this way, for now at least, he's right on top of Dadius. So there's two Baldies right there. I'm just now realizing they're both wearing a red cloak as well. A robe, rather. 2 position, both with an asterisk. Bald tier list. It'd be very short if we're just talking idle champions. Not a whole lot of baldies. I don't know, I think I'd fall into the F tier. He's definitely one to think about as well. Keep in the back of our bald minds. Because he's so unique. He's so unique that it's hard to rank him, for sure. I like full admittance on that. There's a lot of champions I will make an argument like, no, they just belong in this rank regardless. But he's definitely one that's rough. Rough to rank. Rough rank. I think I'm going to keep him there for now. But again, we'll look over it, move things along as we go. Oops. There we go. Look at this wonky formation. Get out of here. You're S tier. Bald. Are you bald, Zadrakis? Welcome to the Bald Club. We need to make jackets. God, this thing is keeping the coffee hot. Red capes. That is a color I don't usually wear. Red is not in my, like, wardrobe at all. You're bald too, Kratos. We got a lot of baldies, and that name is fitting for a baldy. There was a song by a band called The Fall, called The League of Bald-Headed Men. How you doing, Turduck and McNugget? I'll never not love your name, by the way. I love that name. There's just something about it that rolls off the tongue perfectly. Turduck and McNugget. Alright, so who next? We got Shandie, Krond, Krull, Fen, and Shadowheart. Let's get the turtle in. The inevitable fall. We'll hit up Shandie after Crux. Or Krull, not Crux. Yeah, he's gonna be dipping. It's true. It's inevitable. Inevitability. Ah, I keep wanting to call him Crux. Krull. We could go over his kit before selecting. Krull came at a very unique time in the game where he was perfect, but his usefulness has dwindled. His main kit revolves around his plagues. Every 5 seconds, Krull applies a Draconic Plague to the next enemy to spawn. The plagues gain a stack every 3 seconds, increasing their power and capping out at 10 stacks. Plagues can also be applied with his base attack. These plagues are between Pilfer, Pain, and Traitor. Pilfer will give you Gold Find, Pain will give you more damage, and Traitor, when the infected enemy is damaged, nearby enemies also receive a % of that damage per stack. So you can splash it, and if it scales up enough, you will actually splash for more damage than the initial target. And all 3 of these can be stacked on an enemy at a time. But not only that, we'll go over specializations first. He will either increase Pilfer, Pain, or Traitor. So it's a very simple pick of which one you're going to buff. Generally, these days you'll take Pilfer because he'll probably only be used in a Gold Find formation these days, but there are times you'll still use him. The god of click debuff, as these debuffs do buff click damage, but they're also just an amazing debuff for any formation, as Traitor can make you spike higher and splash for more damage, and just the way it all calculates, it is still good, but debuffs have taken more of a backseat these days in favor of positional buffs. You like him, but you can't get his buff over 10 for ages, and yeah, so we'll go over how he then spreads it even more. So first of all, he also gets Arkan's Army. Increases the damage of all evil champions in the formation, but only by a low amount, and it's even reduced further for each good champion in the formation. This one is just bad. as most formations at least have a good or two, and just reducing something that's only an E4, that's not that good, you know? He does also have the Master's Call, increasing the damage of Arcan by a specific amount, again reduced multiplicatively for each slot away from Krull he is. Again, that buff is tiny, and it even gets a reduction, and even then, Arcan scales with positionals, so you might not even be using him with Arcan anyway. Verdicts, thanks for the welcome. You'll be mostly silent. You have a 3-week-old daughter and you don't know what to do first. Well, I'm appreciative for even my lurkers, so don't worry about it, Verdicts, and welcome. Krull was one of the first champions you unlocked, yet for whatever reason RNGesus hasn't given you a single purple for him yet. That's unfortunate. Uh-oh. That's a hefty load user. There we go. Oh, I wonder if my Trials party just started. Then he also has Dark Order synergy, increasing the effect of Arcan's army by 100% for each Dark Order member adjacent to Krull, which is Krull, Torgar, and Arcan, so that only scales if Torgar and Arcan are adjacent, but again, that's not going to scale it up that high, and it's going to be reduced for good champions, and he just doesn't even actually synergize that well. I hate the Dark Order affiliation, and we can just take a look here. Arcan, Krull, and Torgar. It's literally designed to be paired with Arcan, but Arcan scales with positionals. Torgar and Krull don't have positionals. It's not good. Not good by design. Alas, it's actually not on his outgoing effects, so we have to look here for Virulent Strain. When an enemy with a Draconic Plague dies, there is a chance that its plagues will transfer to another enemy. It's possible for an enemy to gain multiple copies of the same plague when this occurs, which will stack multiplicatively. Strongheart has positional. True, he can effectively become a part of the Dark Order, but again, using the Dark Order as a whole with Arcan is rough to begin with. Krull will always be useful for his Krulltimate. Yeah, we'll go over his ultimate as well, which is very good at armor breaking. So Virulent Strain, you can stack this 4 times and it's multiplicative, so this is why a lot of people will use him in a gold find formation. You apply Pilfer to everyone, get a couple of kills, it will potentially pop Virulent Strain and stack the Pilfer buff to 4 stacks of 10. So 40, but it is 10, and 10, and 10, and 10. Those are all scaling additively up to 10, but then applying multiplicatively. So you can scale this up quite well, and this is Traitor and Pain scale in the same way, and that you can get 4 stacks of an additive 10 bonus for each of them, and those 10s multiplicatively scaling with each other up to that 40. So that's where his niche is yes, Pain is only an E6, but that stacks up and then scales multiplicatively. Traitor's only 10%, again, stacking up and then multiplying. And then Pilfer for the gold find, stacking additively, multiplicative. So he is good in all of those ways, but stacking them up to that range is difficult, especially if you're looking for like an Azaka Pilfer, trying to get it to 40, you're not always going to get it, and you're going to struggle sometimes to even get it to stack to 20. If you can stack it to 40, his gold find boost is amazing. How high are my item levels? Not very high. Yeah, I haven't scaled them that much at all. Only in the 2 to... yeah, it's actually pretty sporadic, but like an average of 300-ish. But we'll talk about his ultimate as well. One of the best uses for armor breaking in the game, in that he summons these boys that will explode, and then this acid decomposing corpse pile lingers and will consistently tick damage off of armored and hit-based enemies. Krull summons 4 corrupted ghouls that rush toward the nearest enemy and explode, damaging all nearby enemies and leaving behind a pool of necrotic goo. That goo does tick armor and hit-based quite quickly. It's very good for that. But, as a lot of people know, click debuff and debuff in general isn't quite as important as it used to be. Azaka farming's even harder, especially if you're trying to get a full 4 stack of Pilfer. And he has no positional to offer, doesn't synergize with his own affiliation well. But we'll look at his availability. Krull, Krond, the bro menace that never was. I always wanted to use Krull with Krond. That would have been fun. But this boy's availability. Let's see. I need to get to the right page here. But he is evil, qualifying him for Mert. He has, let's take a look if he has any ability. I don't think he does. Yeah, no abilities score increases in his feats. But he does have 15 con, so he qualifies for Vajra. 1 away on that int. He could definitely benefit from a +1 int. But since he does not qualify for Strahd. Very high strength, but not enough charisma for Zariel. And he did release 1,627 days ago. So he is very much not available for Elminster. But he does have decent ability scores overall, which will qualify him for every Day 1 trials. That can be somewhat important for his ult, as there are a lot of armored bosses in trials runs, so you'll always have that ult if you need it for armor breaking. But is not available for 3 of the 5 patrons, so not the greatest availability. Crux crying in the corner. Very convenient that it disappears just before the party gets to it. What are you talking about exactly there, Rondo? What disappears before the party gets to it? Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. That would be funny to one day add an ult that damages your party if you reach it. That would suck. Yeah, so previously he was ranked very, very high in the S tier. I don't think by today's standards he's going to remain in the S tier. He is still kind of the king of debuffing. If you need a click debuffer or a debuffer in general, he's perfect. But that usefulness has very much dwindled. Still good for an Azaka run for gold, but is more difficult to stack up. I got the hiccups. Excuse me. The big evil boy. Oh, man. I don't want the hiccups right now, bro. Oh, Krull. He does still have his use. He is still good. He just doesn't fit in today's standards for what is useful. With the Queen of Debuff, yeah, King and Queen together. He does have the added benefit of being useful for Gold Find. How high can you get click damage with high favor anyway? I actually haven't tried in a long time. I should, just out of curiosity. Because, yeah, it doesn't keep up with legendary, big boy legendary stacks, but, I mean, you can get it fairly high. What is my... Now I'm just curious. Oop, that was the wrong scene. Quick little Virgil hello. Hello! Yeah, I'm not quite to zone 1000 in this run. I'll just, I don't know, pull out an old gold formation. How old is this formation? I don't even know. We're just in baseline Tomb of Annihilation. I haven't run a Tomb of Annihilation in a while. I'm not getting like peak gold here at all, but just a quick little peaksy doodle. Yeah, I'm only at 1822, so it would go up a lot if I pushed higher. Oh wait, I don't have any form of bud right now, do I? Yeah, that's not gonna cut it. We'll whip out get some bud going. Do I have any bud with this team? I actually don't know. I can with this, right? No, it's not her, it's Veronica. That's right. Alright, fine. I'll just throw out a click damage pot. No, don't die. 435 at that stage. What would that equate to about a Zone 2000? Oh well. It's very much a side tangent. With debuffs, I mean, yeah, you can get it to where you can get past Zone 2000, yeah, for sure. But but let's focus on Krull. So back to the tier list. Yeah, near Grandma Turtle. Yeah, he's probably gonna dip down to the A-. In the same bracket as the Queen of Debuffs, as he is the King, and the other Turtle. But I think his Gold Find edges him out to above Orkira. And his Trader used to be so much more useful in the past, but kind of can still be useful now, as far as proccing that Trader to spike even higher. Still feels too high for both of them. It's still decent buffing. I mean, again, my Orkira reaches an E20 to E21 debuff. That's still pretty good. Even with Artemis shenanigans, oh man, you're gonna make me do math. Because you also have to take into consideration Trader, which overprocs it. I forget what it overall comes out to. Let's see. So... let's say it's... I mean, for me, I think his Pain fully stacked at 40 would be roughly E20, right? I think. But then you have to take into consideration Trader on top of that. So potentially equal to or higher than Orkira. But again, getting a full 40 stack is not a guarantee with him either, but at his peak. Sounds about right. Also, don't need much investment. Yeah, he doesn't need a lot of investment to be good. And he doesn't need the whole Orkira Schmegma team to buffer up. I don't know why I called it that. I mean, he is good. It's just, he really has taken a backseat. Because, really, he came out at the perfect time for him, where debuffs were huge, Click debuff was huge, Zorbu debuff teams were huge, but these days it really is a lot about positionals. Which, whether you like that or not is up to you. I think we've leaned a little too heavy into positionals, whereas all champion damage buffers and debuffers have kind of taken a backseat. I don't know if that's a positive thing, that's personal preference, but he's definitely enough to keep him out of S tier these days, with positional pre-stack buffers that can reach crazy numbers now. So yeah, yeah. A lay bummer, but I think that's where I'm gonna put him for now. He's still good at what he does. It's just doesn't see the light of day very often anymore, unfortunately. Who was next? I think we had someone else. Was it Shandie? I think it was Shandie. Someone wanted to see next. And Shandie's interesting. He finally made it to Avernus. Shandie received a bit of a rework, which is questionable, whether that made her better or worse. She used to have 2 positionals, and now she only has 1, and I think that was a nerf. But some of her numbers got tweaked around, and you generally use her for speed anyway. But at the time, she was pretty useful for Artemis, having 2 different positional buffs to observe. So, but let's look at her kit. Agile allies. Increase the damage of champions within 2 slots of Shandie for each champion adjacent to Shandie with a dex of 15 or higher. I don't think anyone really confuses this much these days, but early on I saw a lot of confusion with that ability where a lot of people thought it only affected people with a dexterity score of 15 or higher, but that's not true. It is the damage of all champions within that slot range simply being increased by adjacent dexterity champions. So we'll put some dexies next to her. It almost sounds like a slur for dexterity-based people. Look at that dexy. Yeah, you're high dex. You're currently 15, yeah. So, with the full 6, which is the maximum, that's getting up to an E16 for me. You definitely want at least 1, because if it's nobody, it will be 0. There is no baseline amount to it. You have to have at least 1. So if you're going to use Shandie, make sure you at least have 1 to get the buff going. Which is, I wouldn't say that's necessarily super restrictive, because dexterity is probably one of the more common ability scores you're going to see 15 or higher. And even in restricted runs, you're probably at least going to have 1 option. But she also has Explosive Arrow. When the formation is under attack, Shandie attacks with Explosive Arrows. The damage of all champions is increased by an amount times the largest number of enemies Shandie has hit with a single explosive arrow in the current run. This used to be positional as well, but was changed again to be all champions. And we will let her stack up a bit, see what that gets to for her. And we'll go to a boss area, because you're more often than not going to be hitting, 100 enemies with it. I think these are all melee. Oh, nope. I was wrong. Does he get all the way close? No. I want a boss too. Give me a boss. So, with all that gathered up, Explosive Arrow is hitting 11 enemies and is buffing 4 to E8. And for reference, my item levels on her are roughly 350 average. So, Shandie plus Lae'zel plus Diana is your early game speed formation, about 11 seconds per level, down from 6 seconds. Shandie and Diana's speed. Yeah, no, and that's what we're about to go into, is her speed, which is her main use these days. But we will go over her specializations first. Where I did it. She's in my baseline formation, and it auto-picked her specialization. No. So, she will increase the base effect of agile allies additively by 100% for each Heroes of Baldur's Gate affiliated champions in the formation. This will at least always be 1, as she is a hero of Baldur's Gate, so if you don't have any other option viable, you can at least take that. You can increase Explosive Arrow by 400%. I would personally say known allies will generally, even at 1, be better than that, as you have to rely on being hit, and even then, if you have a couple dexterity champions around her, agile allies will be a bigger buff than Explosive Arrow. Or, you can increase the base effect of agile allies additively like the first, but for each neutral and evil champion adjacent to her. So if for some reason you can have 6 dexterity 15 plus neutral/evil champions around her, that will be the best pick. But for the sake of this, we'll just take this. And with 1 adjacent, she reaches that E11. Not the greatest. If you can have a few, it does scale up decently. But yeah, her main use comes from dash. Increase the game speed by an amount. Mine is up to 50 because I do have a feat increasing it. It will naturally be, where'd it go? Naturally be 25. With the feat, we'll increase up to 50. So we'll increase the game speed by 50% when the formation has not been under attack. So as long as you are killing things, i.e. a speed run meant to kill low-level things as fast as possible to move on to the next area as fast as possible, this will likely always be up, and you will know it's up when this arrow is on, increasing base game speed. Her numbers get pretty high in Korth, Morduk, Evil Dex formations, and that is a fair point as well, as she does have some formations, even beyond her speed, she can be useful for. And yeah, you can get a lot of evil neutral champions to more qualify for her with Korth, who can boost other people's dexterity up who wouldn't otherwise be. But yeah, her main use these days is speed, and her speed is good, as just a flat 50% increase to the game speed is nice. I am using the speed core. Oh, I guess it doesn't show without using a... yeah, Dex core is really strong too, yeah. I'm racking my brain. Is there anywhere else that shows your current flat game speed other than when you have a speed potion active? I'm trying to think. Mouse over the potion. Oh, that does show it. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So currently 2.25 times. If I am using the speed core right now. If that's not up, down to 1.5. So you can see it goes from 1.5 to 2.25 times while her dash is up. So a good just flat speed increase to the game. Another reason this can be important is speed in the background of this game, whether it be a background party or the game is closed, is wonky with what speed mechanics affect offline/background progress. Time acceleration tends to be one of them. So her dash can be calculated into more speed for background parties or offline progress. She's not so good in variants where there are lots of ranged magic enemies that keep resetting her speed buff, and that's true too. Her effectiveness can be reduced if you're under, like Ravenous said, effects that will hit the formation to deproc that. Still, very important for time acceleration. If you're just overflowing in potions, and you can always have a 10 times time acceleration anyway, her usefulness falls off. A lot of people necessarily won't have that. But yeah, overall a good speed champion and a decent buffer. A double buffer, hard to proc a really good agile allies while taking hits for explosive arrow for it to fully pop off, but not bad. Again, when I was fully surrounded, about an E16. But that would be more if I got... Let's just peek it out here. Get Heroes of Baldur's Gate out and surround her with 6, just to see what she tops out at. Let's, who else are we looking for here? Oh yeah, I always forget Dynahair counts. Baloth, right? And Baloth... Oh, he doesn't have the dex. Okay. I thought he did. Actually, that kind of sucks. She starts every game that she can for me, but might not finish it. Yeah, and that is kind of the theme of Shandie, I think, is you're probably going to throw her in there at the start, but you probably are also going to have to phase her out. Yeah, we might not actually, if I want to surround her in 6, we might not have the dex to do that with the Baldur's Gates. I think actually Delena, yeah, she has high dex. I always forget about that. And Jaheira does not, right? Yeah, she's at 14. I guess we'll just get some more dex-based instead of getting all of the Baldur's Gate. Does anyone else have the... Viconia has the dex, right? Yeah. And then Krull, Minsk, Naris, Shandie, Viconia. Imoen has the dex. Yeah. The original IC waifu. If only she had more usefulness beyond that. So I think that's all we're going to get from the Baldur's Gate crew, dex 15 plus wise. Dynahair's not, right? I don't remember what her dex is. No. And she doesn't have any kind of... Yeah. So we'll just throw in some dexies. Whatever, we'll just throw in Dahani. So, with all of that, E17, that's not a huge increase, but yeah, it could technically scale a bit higher than that if you made sure to surround her in the neutral evil with that specialization. It's not going to be crazy higher than this, though, at this item level range. Still, not a bad buff, hard to get peak performance out of it, but not a bad buff considering she's also a double buffer, where Explosive Arrow will proc once you start coming under attack, increasing the game speed while your formation is not under attack. She has an instant slot in a speed formation, as you don't need to invest in her at all to make her speed pop off, unless you want that feat, of course, to increase it. And there's another feat where it decreases the time it takes for dash to come online, as it's normally 30 seconds, but with this feat you can make it only 10 seconds to save on time. But yeah, a good speed champion to get because you can just slot her in your formation and it'll go. There are ways to slightly increase it, but you don't need heavy investment. So, that being said, I guess we'll look at her availability. She does have decent availability if memory serves. And we'll talk about her ultimate too, because her ult is unique. There she is. So, she is good, therefore available for Mert. And as far as her ability score feats go, she does have a couple options. She has Wisdom, which previously I used to make her available for Narak, and Charisma helps to... there was a reason to qualify for that. I forget at this point, though. Anyway, naturally 15 Con, so available for Vajra. Naturally 13 Intelligence, so available for Strahd. Has the 10 Strength and the 15 Charisma, or the 13 Charisma checkpoint at her 15 Charisma with a feat. Anyway, naturally available for Zariel. However, she did come out 1,753 days ago, so will not be available for Elminster. However, every day 1 Trials restriction with her high TOT and naturally well spread ability scores will make her available for every day 1 Trials restriction. So only locked out of Elminster. That's pretty good availability. Probably Hitch, that might have been why actually. I only use her for speed and don't need to increase her buffing, so I've just increased her ability scores and dash. That's all I use her for. For available, I mean, there are some lockouts where you need to reach certain ability score thresholds, and so that can help. But yeah, as far as where we previously had Shandie as a speed, she is pretty good. She's a decent buffer. So overall a good champion and good availability. We had her in the middle range of the A+. I don't know if she's necessarily going to be there, but we'll see. We'll take a look. Oh, and I will go over her ultimate though. Survivalist. Throwing smoke grenades and caltrops onto the battlefield, causing enemies to take ultimate damage over 10 seconds, and having a 50% chance to miss their attacks during that time. So a little bit of a boost to survivability and bud damage in an AoE form. I do still need to test. I haven't tested. I don't even know how I will in this case. where if mechanics like that proc before or after Krydl has evaded or not. I'm not sure when we're talking about like Gale and Shandie versus his evasion. I don't know which technically happens first. And I don't know how to test that. But something to keep in mind. If you stack a bunch of evasion type mechanics, they could potentially all go together very well. Don't forget Egg. Yeah, the Egbert. What, his is, I forget, is his tied to, was his tied, wait, what is Egbert's tied to? Just the smoke bombs? Or the specialization for it? Smoky bomb. Yeah, and have a 50... Okay, yeah. Egbert's bombs now also create smoke clouds for the last... That last for 10 seconds. Enemy in one or more smoke clouds take an additional blah 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 damage and have a 50% chance to miss with their attack. So there are multiple methods of increasing that via his bomb, which you can see he's leaving the little smoke clouds. Gale with a specialization choice. Shandie with her ultimate. There are multiple ways to stack them together, but as far as Shandie's rank, no matter what, she will at least be in the B+ with her speed friends. But does her personal buffing outshine that on top of that, is the question. Great availability, not available for Elminster, so a bit of a hit, but available for a lot, like everything else restriction-wise, and a lot of patron variants and normal variants she will be used in, able to be used in. Decent buffing, kind of hard to fully set up, but decent buffing. Ugh. She sort of lives with the rest of the speed squad, probably. Literally good for farming gems. Yeah, I do think she's a decent buffer. Again, not the best, but decent. Hand in hand with the speedsters, you think? I mean, I guess that is kind of their buffing range as well, a lot of the time. Right below BBEG just because of his availability. We need it, yeah, availability and Bud, really. I see her being real close with B-Bag, yeah. BBEG. Yeah. I can see that. Behind the B-Bag. I don't hate that. She eventually gets replaced by Potions, BBG, and Thalora, so... yeah, I guess, to a certain degree. BBE Egbert. BB Egbert. She makes you spend less potions, potentially, yeah. And I do like speedsters that just give their kit, and you don't have to invest in them, but BBEG is like that as well. I like that rank, yeah. Just behind BBEG. That's not a bad spot for her. Okay. Is after the tier list a place to ask for some general input? Yeah. You can ask anytime, but I always give a little time after we finish the seat as well. But a question for now, too, is we've got Krond, Fen, and Shadowheart. That's it. The Shart, the Fen, or the Krond. This is an ADHD-friendly stream. Well, I don't know if well, I guess. I'm all over the place. I don't want to derail. I don't mind going on little side quests. So, if you want a question right now, this is a good time since we haven't started talking about a champion. So go ahead. Throw out a question. What do we got? All aboard, dude. The whole choo-choo will always be funny to me because my nephew and my friend, we all often play a multiplayer game together, whether it be Helldivers, old school Overwatch, you know, whatever. My nephew, we were just in an intensive combat scenario, and for some reason he paired "Here Comes the Airplane" with "choo-choo." So every time I think about that, I just think about my nephew saying "choo-choo" for an airplane, and it kills me. What is the recommended strategy for item levels? You're saving blacksmithing contracts for Briv, but use your bounties to get the featured and flex champions to about an item level 1000. Too much for non-pre-stacks? I would definitely say that's too much if you don't plan on using that champion. In your scenario where you're still saving for Briv, Ukulele starts playing in the background. But yeah, 1000, like, again, it depends on if you plan on using them, really, because 1000 is quite a bit, especially when you're looking to throw into Briv, but it is absolutely, I mean, you're just using bounties though, right? So I mean, you're not really going to use bounties on Briv anytime soon, because that happened fairly recently. So I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, because bounties are detached from leveling up other item levels. Because if you're upkeeping with the ability to get them all to 1000 every event, I don't see any problem with that. You got him to 8 jump with savings and... Yeah, because, I mean, he's not hitting... We just got his event, right? Like 2 events ago? So we're not seeing him in a bounty range for another 8 months or something. 10 months. You're dumping yours on Will until you stop seeing the number go up. Technically, if you're throwing stuff at him, when will that number stop going up? Yeah, in 2 months you should have enough for 9 jump Briv. See, I mean, you're even beyond me. I'm not at a 9 jump Briv, so... Yeah, but... I don't see any problem in dropping your bounties on new champions when you're that close to a 9 jump anyway. And you're using exclusively blacksmithing on leveling him. I don't see any problem with that. It's gone up very quickly. Yeah, if you, especially if are you running an AA team or are you running a 4 out of 4 will team, Sinux? AA team, don't got nerds yet. I think an AA team still outperforms a 4 out of 4 nerds, personally. Dirge, and investing in Dirge is just the smarter move in my opinion. But yeah, no. Will's numbers get very good with Folk Hero. It's crazy. But 4 out of 4 gets even crazier. But does that really justify using nerds? Got Dirge to 2002. Yeah. Will's numbers are high enough you think you might. I mean, yeah, Will does pump great numbers. Nerd's availability is kind of poop, though. Unless you've literally done every patron variant that's ever happened. You love AA? Not that you have another choice. Yeah, no, Elminster really does scale great with the AA team right now. I mean, Warduke's another good option as far as a DPS goes, but... Alright, well, let's see. Fen, Krond, and Shart. Interesting last pair. Did almost everything with AA for Elminster, yeah. Calling Elminster Elmo hurt your brain. I would try to do an Elmo voice, but I don't even really remember what he sounds like. Finally managed to get all your Elminster available champions to full purple last night. Nice, nice. Don't tickle me, Elminster. You're talking about this guy here in the bottom right who likes 3-year-olds. Talking about tickling. Anyway. Alright. Krond, Fen, or Shart? Which way we going? Ugh. Fenn's a pretty simplistic one to cover. Patience, extremely young ones. Yeesh. We'll go to Fen. Fen's another one of those kind of like DM, and that I will always recommend unlocking her because of Patron's Oath. Not necessarily investing item levels into her though, but we'll take a look at that kit as soon as Delina stops leveling. Oh my god, Delina, stop leveling. Are you? Thank you. So, Fen, I was using her for a brief stint with my Artemis team, which is why her item levels and pigments are active. She's up to over an average of 1,000. But she got outperformed by others as time went on, but she is a DPS with a positional support ability, so she does work at least well with an Artemis team. She increases the damage of all champions in her column, hence the positional. Fen is just evil Kent, yeah, pretty much, with less availability, but more utility. Not looking forward to Fen dropping out of Elminster Patron, yeah. I feel like she should become also available for all patrons with Patron's Oath. Anyway, speaking of Patron's Oath, we'll just talk about that. While Fen is in the formation, and you are in a patron variant or free play, patron challenges progress made by her party is increased. It is at 300% because I have this feat. I'll remove it real quick. It is naturally 100%, meaning double progress for those challenges. But with it, goes up to 300%. So every kill is counting for 4, every, zone or area passed is counting as 4 instead of 1. Very much helps complete those patron challenges. And for that reason, I always recommend unlocking her to give you a quicker boost through patrons. But let's look at her specializations now. We're dead purple. They're dead purple. So, very simple choice between imbuing her blade with Eldritch Energy, increasing the effect of Mischievous but Dangerous by an amount, and causing her normal attack to deal 5 seconds of Bud. If she's not your DPS, always take that one. Make it work in the background? Yeah, that's always been an iffy thing. Or she can increase her Dampier heritage and increase her own damage. Take this if she's your DPS. How often will she be your DPS? Probably not that often. Nor is she one I'd recommend to make your DPS. It is a little strange, again, in the same way Kent is with his affiliation. She is not the main damage dealer of her own affiliation, the Black Dice Society. However, Nahara, the dedicated DPS, is often out DPS'd by her anyway, regardless of which of these specializations you take. So it is kind of rough, that affiliation as a whole. She out DPS'd her? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about now, Parada. Yeah, so, she actually has good native base damage, strangely. So she can serve as your DPS, but she doesn't necessarily scale well with investment. So she's not an ideal pick for a dedicated DPS, but can be. But having an AoE Bud damage is nice, and a boost to her positional, so that's generally what you'll take. And her Bud is AoE as her base attack. Closest enemy slashes with her longsword, hitting all nearby enemies, and that will Bud on all of them as well with that pick. So just a quick AoE Bud splash on every attack is quite nice. But Mischievous but Dangerous is only an average buff. There's not a whole lot of ways to scale it, and it will always remain a fairly average buff. But the Patron's Oath is a huge boon. However, she also reduces the normal attack speed of all warlocks in the formation for each point of wisdom, and adjacent champion has above 10. So you can not only increase her attack speed to make her Bud happen more frequently, but increase other warlocks as well. She does increase Mischievous but Dangerous with I've Got You Friends, where each champion in the formation that is either Black Dice Society or a Wisdom of 15 will stack it up. So you can get it up there a little bit more. We'll go ahead and just showcase that. Get in here, Neher. Veronica. Dismon. Tatiana. Who am I missing? I'm missing one. Brother Uriah. I always forget about poor Brother Uriah. And Valentine, of course. Brother Urethra. My finger can't reach. Oh well. Veronica, stop. I don't care about your specializations. Strongheart fair, point fair, point. That is the one I will always remember in my own time and never remember on stream. Is that Strongheart will qualify for the most populated formation or affiliation. Can't even talk. It's alright. I'm not crazy, you're crazy. And then we just need some wisdom-ers. So let's see, it was 15 plus, right? Let's just double check that. Wisdom 15 plus. Let's get a couple more in there that qualify for that. Let me pull up a list so I can quickly see that. Wisdom 15 plus. That wouldn't be ideal. What about 7? Vin Ursa, we'll do that. We'll buff Nahara for now. And then we just need 2 more. Let's see. What do we have in seat 10? We have Barrowin, Ulcoria, and Tyrell. Let's just throw out Barrowin. Val isn't out. Fair enough. So, with all of that, we're getting up to an E16. But that is restrictive, and we're using the entirety of the Black Dice Society and the Wisdom 15 plus. That is a fairly harsh restriction, all things considered. So you're probably not going to reach that cap. And even when you reach it, it's not the greatest. It's not the worst, but it's not the greatest. So overall, she's decent. Not great, but decent. But she has that Patron's Oath, which is huge. For overall utility for your account if you're pushing patron challenges. We'll look at her availability. Am I blind? There we go. So, she actually has great availability, which is a good thing because of that Patron's Oath. She is evil, so available for Mert. Does she have any ability score increases? No, so none. However, she has good ability scores, in that she qualifies for Vajra for the Con, Strahd for the Int, and even if she didn't qualify for Strahd, you could use Nahara to pull her in. And you can still do that for restrictive variants where she might not qualify. But Zariel, she does qualify with her 14-14 Strength Charisma, and currently qualifies for Elminster. She is only 486 days released of the 1095, so she still has a fair amount of time for it, but she will eventually be phased out of that. Maybe she'll get a way to get back in there, I don't know though. But because of that ability score spread, she is available for every day one. So currently available for everything as far as restrictions go. Very good availability. What is your Tatiana top item level? I haven't boosted Tatiana that much. Yeah, in the 300s. At some point, I intend to, just to get her spawning going, popping off, But yeah, so, Fen, an okay buffer, not great. Amazing availability. Good utility with Patron's Oath. Can be used for Artemis. Can be an okay damage dealer. Arguably best in slot for Elminster Xerxes Evil Variant 2, depending on which DPS you're using. Yeah, not wrong. That is a rough variant. And she is evil. Ugh. I mean, she definitely has a lot of usefulness. Her buffing does taper, though, because again, E16 only at peak, but how often are you going to be at peak? Probably not terribly often. So with just a couple, we're talking like an E14, and with absolutely nothing, we're talking an E13 with 1,000 to about 1,500 item level. Has to be higher than Kent. Yeah, we'll look at the, oops, go here real quick. Previously, we had her in the high A. And she's actually side by side with Kent. I had Kent slightly ahead of her. I do think she did deserve probably the spot just ahead of Kent. But yeah, in the high A, might take a bit of a dip based on today. We'll take a look at the list. So, let's see here. Hot take, Fen is Shandie from the darkest timeline. They are quite different. She will always have usefulness because of that Patron's Oath. A lot of people will phase out of doing challenges. I still always do the challenges if I have the time. And I always use her for it. You think she fits in the B+? What was that? That was weird. Above Baloth. You think the Gatekeeper of A-? I don't know if I'd put her that high. My initial instinct was high B+ or very low A-, was my first instinct. But I don't know. Gotta think about that. More useful than DM? That's arguable. At least an E20 buff for A-. Yeah, I'm thinking more in the lines of her utility on top of that. But yeah, her buff really does lack. Yeah, not arguable whether she's more useful than DM, because DM helps you push the very difficult stuff, whereas Fen just helps you speed along some challenges, which is nice, but... Do you think that DPS breakdown is... Do you think that DPS breakdown is BS, has validity? I don't actually know what you're saying, Crafty. You might have to use smaller words with my dumb brain today. I can agree with that. You were just looking at the unique ability, and everyone should unlock her, but I can see B+. Yeah, she is like DM in that I highly recommend having her no matter what, because of the Patron Challenge acceleration. But as far as being more useful than DM, her buff is better, for sure. She has Bud, a quick AoE Bud, which is nice. She can be used in an Artemis formation, so that's another boon. Patron challenges aren't important because they always been made in the background parties overnight. It depends. Yeah, I'm thinking my gut instinct was somewhere in this range. On one side or the other of Lae'zel. Whoa. But I don't know. That was my gut reaction. If her ability worked like Strongheart's did, I think she could be A regardless of buff numbers. Worked like Strongheart in what way, do you mean? Again, both Fen and DM are unique ones to rank because always will recommend unlocking them, but... Oh, I see. I feel like they made some comment about that. I don't remember, though. I think it was like, it did for a while and it wasn't supposed to, but then it was going to, but then it was supposed to. I don't remember how that all went. Do I like that? Positioning or not? I mean, I could also even just see an argument for putting her next to DM. You'd suggest moving everyone from B- to E? Wait, what? Thank you for the follow, Trinorium. Welcome back. I know I've seen that name before. You'd suggest moving everyone from B- to E down one level and putting the bottom of B+ and the top of what becomes C+ into the now empty B-. I don't fully know what you're saying with the B- to E down one level. I don't know what that means. B+ and B- are too full, and I don't think anyone cares if someone is E or F. I was thinking about making E just the F tier. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think things should always just be spread out. Sometimes there are just a lot of average champions, and a lot of these champions are fitting in that average niche. Xander deserves his own tier. We'll definitely see as we rank more champions. No matter what, there's going to be a few brackets that are more populated. That's just gonna happen. For comedy value, yes. For the time being, kind of got off track with thinking about Fen here. Rosie will keep him company. We'll see for how long. We'll leave her next to DM for now. Just take away the tiers and make it one long line. You got... Whoa, easy there with the spamming, though. One-man spam is not something I like. You got confused for a sec, you checked the list, and you were like, why is Celeste Calliope and Ailey? Took me a minute to realize the whole list. Also, Knox feels underappreciated in C-. He basically carries your damage boost with its synergy with Makos and Celeste. That is only for the very, 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 very early game that would be beneficial. His buff really, we went over that today. His buff isn't very good at all things considered by today's standards. He has decent availability, but yeah. Yeah, my brain is still going back and forth with Fen, but her ace energy puts her at least a tier above Xander. As she is right now. Don't know why I sent 3 times. Okay, you're good. As long as you yeah, I don't like it when someone just spams their same crap. But yeah, we did go over Knox, and that the problem is no matter what you do, his buff is not good. And again, I don't like to seat by seat compare champions, but there is a tank that buffs everyone behind them in his seat that is infinitely better. And his boosting to Makos and Celeste is only a flat 100 that isn't scaled, which isn't that big of a boost at the end of the day. But yeah, let's move on from Fen for now. But I've been having her stuck in my head for a bit. Which leaves us with Krond and Shart. I guess we could save a DPS for last, or Shadowheart, as she is the most recent AA, could be good to keep for last. We'll go to Krond. Yeah, Krond next, yeah. Let's go to Krond. He's a pretty simple boy, too. Leave Our Lady for last. Oh, Krond. The boy a lot of people lean toward as their DPS. Someone who I've often thought about using as a DPS. But he does have a few issues. So, he revolves entirely around, again, being a DPS and that's it. And he scales his damage with Survival of the Fittest, increasing his damage for each champion in the formation who is evil or has a strength score of 16 or higher. This is a pre-stack multiplier, so it does scale quite well. So if you're using Krond, you are restricted to evil or strength 16 plus champions. While that sounds restrictive, there are a lot of champions who fall into that category, so he actually does have a lot of options. We'll just throw in, let's see, we'll do the Deadies, because that's always fun. Thank you for the follow, I got blunts. Let's see here. There he is. Star him. It is the top, so we'll just do it like that. So we got the Deadies with Desmond. They all qualify as all the Deadies are evil, and Desmond has the strength 16 plus. And let's see, what else are we gonna throw in here? We'll go Miria. She is evil. Enjoy the vids, thank you. Hey, thanks for watching them and checking me out here. There's just not enough evil champions. They've been trickling in the game a bit more. Viners is one of them. We've been definitely getting a few more. Who do I want to throw in here? I want to make a fun-looking formation. The only big downside to Krond is, of course, a lot of people want to use Valentine in everything, and she is good enough to justify losing a slot in the formation to use Valentine. We're not going to today, just because I want to have fun with it, but I guess we could do the, point can work. Why not? Let's have some fun with it. 26 out of 135 total, yeah. Again, though, lately it seems like we've been getting a few more. The Absolute Adversaries gave us a few, and another Deady, which is interesting. And, I mean, Vinersa. And of course, could be using Crux too, because Crux reaches the strength threshold. But we're going Deadies for now, just for the funsies. Let's see. I mean, we could, or no, Strongheart doesn't qualify, that's right. He doesn't have a strength feed, right? Yeah, I always thought he should. That was always a weird one to me. I don't know, Warden, whatever. Just get something in there. So, with the 10 out of 10, we're reaching E31 self DPS buff. That's pretty good considering, while I do have it shinied, I'm only at an item level 350 for that pre-stack. Being pre-stack, that's going to scale really well. So he does have a really good self boost. Warden's newest skin is pretty awesome, I think so. I like that skin, actually. As far as his specializations go, these days you're only affecting his main attack and a slight mechanic behind what that will be, between making it an AoE, making it a stun, or making it deal multiple hits of damage. So, AoE for cleave, stun for crowd control, and multiple hits for armor or hit breaking. These used to kind of tinker with his damage, they equalized it to where that doesn't really matter anymore. But he does also have, you won't find it in the Survival of the Fittest, but he does have Eldritch Strike. Enemies that Krond damages will take additional damage from his cantrip spells. So they are flattened now though, so in a way, technically Firebolt is hitting harder because it's hitting multiple times, but yeah. That's better numbers than similar level Dirge. Yeah, he, I mean, as far as like Ceramorphosis versus Survival, that's actually the unique thing about Survival of the Fittest, is if you look at the base numbers, his base pre-stack is higher than almost every buff in the game. I think it's 32, so 3,200% baseline, whereas almost everything else is 100%. So he actually has a leg up starting that scaling versus other similar effects. And because of that, it scales better too, but yeah, I believe it's 3,200, whereas most things are 100, which is interesting. But when we're talking about Dirge, he also has Resist the Urge and also has Living on the Edge on top of Ceramorphosis, so it's a bit different. Whereas you're kind of just relying on Survival of the Fittest, because yes, you have Eldritch Strike, but E4, that's not a huge boost. It's a boost, and you take any boost you can. But, yeah. You think Dirge is better just because of Will? Yeah. Kit versus Kit, though, I think Dirge even still comes out slightly ahead. And Dirge is usable everywhere? Exactly. That's a huge reason to take Dirge over Krond. And we'll go straight into his availability, piggybacking off of that. You kind of see a major issue. Seems even tough. Your Spurt has lower gear than Artemis. Your DPS seems to go up higher with Spurt in. Seems even though your Spurt has lower gear than Artemis, your DPS goes up higher with Spurt in? I mean, that entirely depends on what kind of formation you're using for Artemis, if Spurt is increasing your damage. But Artemis usually requires a bit of investment before he fully pops off. When he pops off, it's hard to compete. But Krond's availability... Where are you, big boy? And I love half-orcs. Half-orcs are my thing in D&D. So, he is available for Mert, being evil. He does have 14 Constitution, so is available for Vajra. He does, as a fighter but Eldritch Knight, have a higher int, so he will be available for Strahd. However, he will not be available for Zariel, as he does not have the Charisma. He will also not be available for Elminster, as he came out a long time ago, 2,390 days ago. As far as Day 1 trials, because of that low Charisma, he will be locked out of the Day 1 Charisma trial. So he will always be locked out of Zariel, and one of the Day 1 trials. That's still decent availability. That's not terrible. But again, this is a very me thing. I think a DPS, yeah, that Caius kind of said it there. I don't think that's F tier, but a DPS that is not 6 out of 6 for trials is rough. Not being completely locked out of your DPS on a Day 1 trial sucks. Yeah, and yeah, Elminster, I mean, it is rough, yeah, but also Zariel. So yeah, he is restrictive as a DPS, not insanely restrictive, but any kind of restriction, especially on day 1 trials, is really rough when you're considering investing in a DPS. Because if you completely lack the DPS you've built your formation and investments around, that just blows. Just fish him out with a glitched DM. Half orcs in his... Oh, thing. I think you meant thing. The thing threw me off there, Rondo. Artemis numbers aren't very high without other DPS positional buffers. Yeah, Artemis needs a little bit of investment and a team of many positionals and DPS positionals. So, all depends on your formation. So yeah, Krond is a good scaling DPS, is a fun DPS, is very basic and fairly easy to use, slightly restrictive in who can be used with him, but not as restrictive as you might think. There are a lot of good buffers within that. Not even iffy availability, but even one day 1 trial lockout is rough. I do think he's one of the better damage dealers in the game if we're just talking about being a damage dealer. But we have to consider availability with DPS even harsher, in my opinion. Previously, we had the Krond in a high A, as he is a high scaling DPS, up in the A+. As far as where he's going to go now, there are hardcore defenders of Krond, and I see a reason for it. But I also see a reason to not recommend him as your main DPS. So that's kinda rough. A personal pre-stack is great for a DPS though. I think the fact he doesn't work with so many of the best champs is a big negative. He does work with a lot of great buffers though. I mean, there are a few he's locked out of for sure. But he's got even more options these days. Yeah, but look at the top of the tier list. I mean, he works with Briv, he works with Crux, he works with Blushi, he works with Evelyn, works with Spurt, works with Omen, works with Krull. Well, not with Krull. that's a wish. I mean, he works with about half of them up there. Still somewhere at A+, right? That's my question, is he still in A+, or does he even get knocked down a little to A-, honestly? Two patrons is rough. Shouldn't the availability knock him down? Yeah, but look, I do think he's good. But availability on DPS is huge for me. And not only that, we have a new patron he can never be used for, and it's a rough patron for a lot of the variants. I think he might get dipped down to A-. You think between Kreidel and Gromma potentially? A DPS that isn't 6/6 can't be A+. I kind of agree. Again, that pre-stack is good. He does have that pre-stack scaling, but big ol' fatty booty. I actually can see him between Kreidel and the Tortle. I could see him there. Yeah, I think Spurt will eventually be getting a knockdown, if I'm being honest, as the list gets more populated. You think she's... my only problem... Well, I have a few problems. Gromma is very good and very versatile. That's her strength. But she can put good numbers, does have a pre-stack, is a little bit restrictive. Not crazy, though. Is she better than... Ranking DPS against a support is definitely a harder thing to do. Him having a high scaling pre-stack, I think, is pretty big. If he just wasn't as restrictive, if he had a way to boost his charisma, oh, he would be better. better. If he one day gets a charisma feat, that makes him available for day 1, that might change his rank a lot. Give him a tadpole? That would be weird. As he shares a seat with a huge tadpole user and is a DPS only. Do I think Grama should be above Krond? Also has canonically no reason to have one. Yeah, he is a CNE original, and he's just like, life sucks. I'm gonna be evil now. Not tied to Baldur's Gate at all. Actually, I don't know where he's from. Do they classify where he's from, lore-wise, within their? Let's see. We were in research orc tribe various Krond experience raised as a. No, we don't know where he's from within the world. Will deserves it? Why, just because... Why does Will deserve it? He's wearing that armor, I forget the faction? What is it called? Just Silver Dragon? Are they tied to... Silver Dragon? What is that? Oh, that's making me draw a blank. Silver Dragon. Silver Dragon. Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, it's just pulling up literal silver dragons for me. So, anyway, every less relevant character should just get a tadpole for Will. But if Krond had a tadpole, that means you're using him specifically as your main DPS. With a full absolute adversaries while locking yourself out of Shadowheart, who is, we'll get to in a second. Anyway, as far as his rank, I do see him right in the lower A- range, one way or the other. And with Grama's rework, she is good and better. Little restrictive. You'll make it work somehow. Hey, Krond, again, if Krond had a way to boost his charisma so he could at least be day 1 trial across the board, I think he's good. He works really well with scaling item levels with his higher base pre-stack. I think he's fun, but that restriction, I can't justifiably put him in the A+. Knight of Bahamut? Maybe. Bahamut? If you played Final Fantasy 12. Bahamut? I don't know why. That was like nails on a chalkboard to me, the way they pronounced a lot of stuff in Final Fantasy 12. As evil champion? Yeah, being a Knight of Bahamut as an evil champion is interesting. Maybe Tiamat? Yeah, we'll leave him there for now. That's... Oh, hi, Virgil. Which means all we have left is the Shart. Krull fell further than you expected. It's a symptom of debuffs not being quite as important, and a heavier lean into positionals, which he offers nothing of, with a very bad affiliation synergy secondary abilities. How you doing, Chibi? So, Shadowheart, the big ol' Shart. Part of the ever-growing in popularity, absolute adversaries. Pretty good buffer, with a Ceramorphosis stack. But her buffing is quite unique. So let's just explain it. Twilight Trickery. She will increase the damage of champions within 2 slots of her by an average amount, which can scale. We'll look at its scaling in a bit. However, she also has Invoke Duplicity. Shadowheart creates an illusory duplicate of herself, which hides in the formation, and applies Twilight Trickery and her heal, which we'll also go over, to champions relative to itself with half of the range. The duplicate positions itself on the same formation slot as the champion in the formation with the highest dexterity score. Ties go to the champion in the highest bench seat. This duplicate is itself another buff, so she gets Twilight Trickery and Invoke Duplicity, 2 different instances currently at E11, which alone actually scales quite well. She has a whopping 3 positionals. Yeah. She needs a feat to lock the illusory or change where it goes. It would be nice, that is definitely a restriction for her, is to have more freedom in where to put the duplicate. Would definitely be handy. But for the sake of this, let's just get out Astarion, who tends to be the one it goes to if you use the absolute adversaries. So in this situation, not Evelyn. Don't know why I selected Evelyn. In this scenario here, she is within 2 slots of Dirge and 1 slot of the duplicate, so Dirge will be receiving Twilight Trickery and Invoke Duplicity. And now that we have a few more Ceramorphosis, we're only at 3 Ceramorphosis, and we're already looking at an E15 on top of an E16 buff. That starts scaling pretty hard. So looking at her Ceramorphosis, your formation gains 1 stack with her just being in the formation, and she increases the effect of Twilight Trickery for each Ceramorphosis stack, stacking multiplicatively. She's one of those that gets it with the pre-stack, so that scales very hard. Primetime Nerakable targets, yeah. Nerak with the Wisdom next to her will boost her positionals as he has the Wisdom. I think he's on Dex right now. Where are... There you are. And yeah, Nerak also in this scenario has a Tadpole, so by throwing Nerak in, boosting a Wisdom positional on top of having a Ceramorphosis stack himself, we're at E17 and E18. Thought the actress was great for the post-release items they did for BG3, as do I see great for the AA team. Actually, I'm not very familiar with Shadowheart's voice actress, oddly enough. I know I've seen her, but I actually haven't looked too much into her at all, thinking about it. Anyway, so if we're going to do a full absolute adversary team, let's just get a bunch of Ceramorphosis out and see how hard that will scale. We can just throw Jaheira in now, as Jaheira now has a Ceramorphosis feat. Let me see if it's equipped. It is indeed. And yeah, we'll have her take the slot of Minsk, I guess. We're not looking at Will right now, so I'm not worrying about Folk Hero. I'm just getting Ceramorphosis out. What spec do I have? Gale. Yeah. Let's get him at least in the same slot. And Ceramorphosis. Or column, rather. Voice actress strikes you as kinda sassy. Like she's actually Shadowheart and not acting. That is one. It is a funny thing in BG3. Her character definitely can get a lot of character development one way or the other, no spoilers. But early on, man, she is too sassy. It's like, okay, I understand Shadowheart. Calm down. But with a, let's make sure we're at it. I guess I can make sure I'm at a 10 stack with Dirge. Ceramorphosis at 10 stacks. We are looking at... Whew. You need to play BG3. It is a great game, especially if you love CRPGs or if you liked... I've never forgot the name of this game. Divinity Original Sin 2. It is basically Divinity Original Sin 2 in Baldur's Gate 3 with D&D mechanics. Yeah, Divinity, yeah. So you can see with the full Ceramorphosis boost with Nrak, we're looking at an E28 plus an E30. That's a pretty good buff. Unless you're using an absolute adversary team, you're not going to reach those numbers. That being said, even before we got to this range, she was still pumping good numbers. We're talking a really good buff. Overall, all things considered, with good scaling, but she's also a healer, so let's look at that. Shadowheart heals champions in the 2 columns ahead of her for a decent amount. Again, healing is never going to fully keep up, so every second. And Invoke Duplicity will spread that 1 column in front of them as well. For literally nothing. Yeah, again, only in rare variants where you're taking like percentile damage or something. That's the only time it's gonna matter, for the most part. How is your AA team compared to your Arty team? My Arty team is still pumping higher numbers. I haven't fully dove into a Dirge team yet. All of my legendaries are still on my Arty team. So you can I'm not... This isn't an ideal formation or anything, but I'm popping a 618 Bud with a Dirge, not ideal. Quick switch to Artemis, I'm pumping... I'll get close if not to E1000, because I don't have Blue Sheet Dead or anything yet. But... So yeah, my Arty is still much more outperforming my AA, but... So, you still want a tank, so you have E10 health, so the healing takes literal days to top someone off. Yeah, no, it's not great. Healing in general, just not good. Well, yeah, the only time really you're going to use percentile, like low percentile healing is, again, a variant that's dealing damage to everyone, percentile based, that's about it. But, Shadowheart is pretty good, but let's look at her availability. That Briv and Karlach don't qualify for it? Yeah. Let's see. So, we are looking at not available for Mert, as she is neutral. I've always been, especially since they set the precedent with Gale, I thought they should allow her a feat as well. But yeah, so neutral, so not available for Mert. She does have the Constitution for Vajra. Does she have... Yeah, we just looked. No attribute feats. Her int is too low for Strahd, and her charisma is too low for Zariel. She was only released 164 days ago, so will be available for Elminster for quite a while. And with her ability score spread, she will be locked out of the Charisma Day 1 trials. So she is only available for 2 out of the 3 patrons, and will be locked out of Day 1 trial. Not the greatest availability. Not the worst, but not great. And the strength? What do you mean, and the strength? For Zariel? It's only 10 strength for Zariel. She would qualify for the strength, just not the charisma. You're sure a good feat will come in sometime with a blonde skin? I was kind of surprised they didn't go that route. I mean, that is pseudo-spoilers, so I won't say anything about why, but... yeah. Surprised they didn't do an underwear skin either. Like 90% of people who rock Shadowheart in BG3 put her in some tight outfit. If she toned down on the sass, she could have had more charisma. She is very sassy early on. Recommend the D&D, the main BG3 cast did with the Mark Holmes part of the hype. Need Bing Bong, you nice. There's an indie game. What? The S tier underwear is Lae'zel's. Yeah, but usually people will take Lae'zel's underwear and put it on Shadowheart. Anyway, so yeah, her availability is a knock, but her buffing is very good, with great scaling, and while she obviously pops off the best with the absolute adversaries, she does not require them to be good. Her peak, yes, but... Lingerie discussions with Tyredack. And never mind, I was gonna talk about me trying them on, but believe me, you don't want to see that. Yeah, so previously, I mean, she is pretty new, so it's a fairly new rank. We had her in the higher A, in the A+. I think she deserved to be a little higher than that, honestly. But, yeah, she should have been higher than that baseline. But that's okay, that's why we're here. Tyredack is immune because he can't picture images. Yeah, but I can look at something and delineate from... assume what they would look like in things. But no, like, yeah, I do kind of need to just see it. But since I've seen it, I have, like... I know what it looks like in the back of my head, I just can't see it. That's only for Tyredack's OnlyFans. Bro, no one would sign up for my OnlyFans, believe me. Not availability. Tier list. She belongs above Karlach for sure. I don't know if I agree with that, actually. Karlach reaches very high numbers, potentially competitive with Shadowheart depending on your formation, but Karlach qualifies for a lot of other champions' types of formations that Shadowheart wouldn't. But does she belong in A+? I think so. She has a pre-stack multiplier, though it is tied to Ceremorphosis. It is a double buff that you can... 2 different high-powered positional buffs you can place on people. I think she's very good. Yeah, that's it. Karlach covers a lot of roles and can fit those roles. Fits in with an Artemis team. Fits in with any Tiefling-based team. Can be her own DPS. But yeah, Shadowheart's Ceremorphosis scaling is very important if you want to reach peak numbers. So it is restrictive, but again, you don't require that to make her even good. Even with just a couple and all of the Ceremorphosis, for the most part, can put up decent numbers. You say that like it's a downside, it is if you don't use the AA, which a lot of people are these days, but that does have to be considered. But there are a lot of AA you can use with her, even if you're not using a full AA team, to boost her up while offering still great numbers, like Karlach, like Gale. Shart's Ceremorphosis is only second to Will's. True, but Will's is also infinitely more restrictive. I do think she belongs in the A+. We'll get her up there just for now to look around. Obviously above Spurt, if nothing else. Her versus Gale. Gale's usefulness takes off even... I mean, she is still available for Elminster, but he will always be. And his buffing is a little overinflated right now just from event numbers. She can definitely top more than him from raw buffing. Yeah, Gale doesn't scale quite like she can. So I do think she would be above Gale, for sure. I mean, Gale does scale, but not in the same way she does. Is that Evelyn up there? I'm pleasantly surprised you're getting her. What is she now? 4 days? Or what? Yeah, Evelyn's numbers got massively boosted with her season. She might get tagged down a little bit as we move on this list. Like, I am looking at this now, kind of half tempted to do something like this, but I don't know yet. I do think all of these... Spurt might get knocked down, but everyone else I think still belongs in A+ one way or the other. Don't forget the orb debuff from Gale that can get pretty high. It gets decently high, but it only reaches peak numbers at severe restrictions. But it is decent, yeah. No, Gale's still good. I think Gale belongs in A+. And he does still decently... He requires a lot of time invested to scale him up, but... That's only high because of event buffs. Event plus restriction, it will dwindle down. It will still be good, but it will go down quite a bit. It'll shoot that high again when if you take the I don't remember what it's called, but the one that scales with the more people that are restricted, that makes it go way up there, but that's only in that scenario. What is it? Man, what is it called? That's gonna bug me now. I have to look just for the sake of my own brain. Finite Fellowship. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, this one will make it go crazy if you have in a very restricted run. But yeah, I think we're looking at... Whoopsie. I think we're looking at seat 6. I mean, 56 does sound high. It depends on your item levels, clearly. But it can get up to like 46, E46, without being bugged with finite, if enough people are locked, because it is a multiplicative stack. Yeah, but now is a great time for any questions related to or not related to what we're doing here. But we're in the cooldown period looking at seat 6 being done. Thanks for doing 10% faster today, now off to your family function. You will see me Tuesday if you're coming back for the next stream. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Lazy Cat. But thanks for popping in, and for... I think you've been here just about every stream, right? Isn't there an adventure that you can only use 2 champions? Yes, in the Tiamat, but I don't think they count as locked out champions. In this, I don't think finite scales with that. I think it just grays everyone out once you've slotted 2, and they're not necessarily restricted, they just can't be placed. I think. I could be wrong, though. Could you show Nrak in AA? You still don't get how Nrak works, to be honest? Yeah, we can look at that. Let's get everything. I know it does not count, I didn't think so. Seat 7 will be Tuesday, starting 11:30 PST. Oh, 30 minutes late to see one? Okay, yeah. I know I've seen you around here a lot, and I thought it was every day, but that would have been some crazy numbers. Yeah. Just counts the ones you can't play, yeah. What about the Rosie variant? If you DM Fished Gale when only Rosie and Strix are allowed? That one might. Yeah, I think that would work, right? Because they are just hard locked out. So that one could. That would be interesting if you did it enough times to lock him. But as far as Nrak going into the AA team, first of all, the biggest reason would be that... I need to get those familiars off. The biggest reason being he has a tadpole feat, so he scales Ceramorphosis. So right out of the gate, he's giving everyone who scales with Ceramorphosis a Ceramorphosis stack. But also he just happens to be an amazing positional buffer and a great debuffer on top of that. So sometimes you can't always get him adjacent to the people you want to for his positional buffing. Ideally, you'll probably want him slotted for Wisdom adjacent to Shadowheart, But if nothing else, you can at least go dexterity, probably, to boost Astarion. This is my current team, I think. I haven't, again, this is Tomb of Annihilation. I've done this on every stream, just for the simplicity of the formation slots, but I haven't actually messed with my formations here in a minute. Why does he have Ceramorphosis lore-wise? Is he in BG3? No. I think just because he's Gith, honestly, is why they chose him. And him being a monk does fit in with the... That is the only class that is not represented by the entirety of the core crew of Baldur's Gate, if you consider Minthara and Halsin. There was the Rosy variant, which, yeah. Happy the streams go on YouTube too. You missed a few. They will also always be as, not VODs, but highlights, as I'm not even an affiliate yet. VODs only remain for a week. I can't control that, but I do save them as a highlight. If you go to my Twitch channel, go to my videos and check out my highlights, all of my previous streams will be there as well. But yes, I'm also uploading them to the YouTube. The YouTubes. Homeworld 3 is available now in Hades 2 just a couple of days ago. I've thought about checking out Hades 2 for sure. Don't know much about Homeworld 3. You've got too many games to play, and it's Mother's Day tomorrow. Oh, is it? Wow, I didn't even know that either. Time is not good for me. You have to drive out to your parents and spend a day with them. Darkest timeline. The tadpole spreads over the whole IC squad. I do believe Naraka is the only one that has no ties to Baldur's Gate, though. I mean, Viconia makes sense. Imoen... Well, Imoen's not. Yeah, that's not relevant. Jaheira is who I meant. Jaheira makes sense. Minsk makes sense. Isn't he CE original? Yeah. Yeah. It is a little strange that they chose Naraka, but I think if they're gonna choose an original character, it made sense in regards to how he fits with that formation. But yeah, no, it doesn't make like lore sense at all. Pretty sure Gale Orb isn't supposed to go anywhere near E40. It's 10% multiplicative. If it was working correctly, you wouldn't get there even if everyone was restricted. Maybe I'd have to do some math on that. I might in a second. You never played Baldur's Gate 3? If you're into that kind of thing, it's a good game. It really is. If you played, oh, there it goes. Don't care. If you played Divinity Original Sin, if you know what that is and enjoyed it, you'll probably enjoy Baldur's Gate 3, as it's just D&D in the Divinity playstyle. Dinah Hare doesn't make sense, only in that she's a part of the games vaguely and tied to Minsk. But yeah, no, you're right. To be fair, you don't need ties to Baldur's Gate, just an excuse to run into a Mind Flayer. Yeah. He was probably chosen for Lae'zel DPS. It's applying the event buff to the priest act. Yeah, but that's when it gets to like the E60 numbers. Dinah Hare is dead. So are a lot of champions in this game. Canonically speaking. So her tadpole is also dead. Again, within the context of this game, dead doesn't really matter. There's a lot of people from different timelines all over the place that you slot together. 2 dead for Desmond. Let's see here though. Thanks again. Useful breakdown and friendly chat with everyone here. Hey, thanks for coming in, Kraken. Still Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for next week. That is the plan. Yep. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 11:30 PST. will be the plan for all streams until I say otherwise. I don't know. I'll probably stick to it for the entirety of through seat 12. We'll see after that. See you on seat 9. Ciao. You can do Thursday. That's good. Can't miss seat 8. On a more relevant note, you're now debating whether to get Evelyn. You already have 3 in that seat and need people in seats 1 and 3 for Split the Party, but the event champions in those seats don't rate highly. I do think unlocking Split the Party is important to do, so I do think that is viable. Depends on if you already have someone who is good in seat 6 or not, you know? Is it midday for you? It is currently 3 p.m. for me right now. Well, 3:12. We are at the halfway, that's true. Seat 6, halfway to 12. You don't know why, but D&D Necromancer jokes always make you laugh no matter how bad they are. Hard to raise a family, not if they're buried close together. Evelyn is a good time gate choice. She is. Evelyn's not bad. You won't see her in every formation, but she has a use in many. And she does put out great numbers once you start pushing. Understand her kit. Because if you're not able to push very far, her numbers aren't going to be amazing. But if you can start pushing a little deeper, she just gets better as you go. Yeah, I do often recommend focusing on Split the Party first, if possible. But, yeah. Shadowheart and Shandie. I mean, Shadowheart is pretty good, and Shandie's good for speed. Depends on if you need a tank desperately or not, really, at that point. But I would personally recommend Split the Party, but that's just me. You don't have every champion. Evelyn is one of those solid replacement choices in many situations. Yeah. Pull up your new tier list. Have to choose the next flex. Well, we can take a look at the current tier list. Again, I don't necessarily recommend just going straight down the tier list and picking people. It definitely depends on your intended formation. Things change depending on who you're using. Next seat, we get our next S tier, Egbert. Egbert. You have all champions for it, so it's only for item level. I mean, that still depends on what formation you run, right? If you're Artemis, is there even... Man, I'd have to look at... I forget who even is available this event. Other than, obviously, Grama and Diana. I don't even know if there is anyone good for Artie this time around. I'd have to look at it again. Only Evelyn this time around. Next X tier is definitely Minsk. Is that so? You use her in your... Yeah, no, she's a good tank for Artie, for sure. And buffs everyone behind her. That's a easy-to-use positional. Good event buffs are worth more than item levels. Not that there are any this event. Yeah, and yeah. I mean... What event boons, other than, you know, just boosting your damage, have even been relevant, though? I mean, I guess the Briv one, just to give you the stacks without taking that specialization, but that's whatever. Not entirely sure if there is a next S tier by the high standards of Seat S. I mean, as far as S tier, I don't know, but spoilers, Jim is probably going to be the highest ranked, just because of how well he scales, but his availability isn't the greatest. We'll take a look at him when we take a look at him. Okay, let's just take a peek at Seat 7. Yeah, there's some good ones, but there's some as well, for sure. The Diana Priest, yeah. I guess the Melf speed, yeah, I kind of forgot about that one. Like, I'm not saying the buffs are bad. I'm just saying, like, other than just raw numerical buffs, what was there? Freely will probably take a dip. He's still good, but he's not the standalone best gold find kind of thing anymore. Debuffs just aren't quite what they used to be. But yeah, Jim got a big buff. Yeah, no, Jim got a huge buff. Yeah. The Diana tier 4 is very good. You have a 10k caddy, so you can send her to trials when you think I need. Farida will be interesting to rank, yeah. Especially with her on the cusp of being completely unavailable for Elminster through Mehen. I mean, how close are we to that now? Let's see. Yeah, we're really close. Because Mehen is 1,088 and the cutoff is 1,095. Oof, that cutoff for using Farida and Elminster is going to be rough. Always arrive at the end of stream. Didn't want to get up too early on a Saturday morning. Yeah, I feel that. Tordifu, how you doing? It's okay. I'll put the. I usually try to get the VOD up within a couple hours after stream, and so the VOD will be up shortly after I'm done. If you want to watch that. There have been streams of Will getting E46 buffs in the last couple of days. I mean, if people who invest in Will get, I mean, I've seen him way up there. Oh yeah, Sunday, I didn't even process that. Not even that leveled, yeah. I don't even know where my will's at right now. I passed it, huh? There, oh, hello. Yeah, I'm only at a base E20, but if we're talking 4 out of 4, you know, that's different. But this formation, 3 out of 4 dirge. What am I overall sitting at? Did I miss it? Oh, no, there it is. E56, 3 out of 4. What item level shiny? I think he's sitting at about a 1,000 with shinies. Yeah, 1,000 to 1,500 with shinies. Haven't invested in Will at all. He's just 4K eye levels or something. Yeah. No, his scaling gets crazy. He can give Jaheira 4/4. Yeah, if you have the Druid Fighter split. And Nerds. Nerds is easy to pop 4/4. Who did I have to replace? Dynahair? Is that what it was? Oh no, and Durich, huh? I don't remember. Let's see where he's at. I'm at 3. So what am I missing? What do I have to do here? We definitely have too many wizards with, or no. What are we at? Let's see. Cleric, Rogue, Fighter. So we need at least one more of one of the classes. I'll read this first. Let's see. That's why they end up that. Does Jim's rework make him good for Elminster? I don't believe he is available for Elminster, right? Came out too long ago. We haven't gone over him yet. That will be Tuesday. Yeah, he came out too long ago. He can't be used for Elminster. So, seasonal reworks do not count for making them viable, unfortunately. You might be misunderstanding Will. He does affiliations. Wouldn't you have to tie... That always wins, right? Okay, so the races, the classes... Or, let's just pull him up. With Will, the races, classes, and affiliations are all separate. So the way you get 4 out of 4 for nerds is by having multiple of 4 different classes. You get a 4 tie out there, and then there's 4 to count right there. So that's why, for here, he's already getting Cleric, Rogue, and Fighter out to the nerds. So we need to find one more class to give a 2 to tie with 4 different classes that are 2, so nerds can count for all 4. So for the sake of this, let's just throw out Minsk as a Ranger. That should make them buff Ranger, Cleric, Rogue, and Fighter. So then the nerds will count 4 out of 4. There you go, 4 out of 4, hitting him for E70 right now. Think you may have to switch to Jaheira DPS over Dirge then. I think Dirge will, most of the time, still outperform Jaheira. There's not a lot of good druids to pair with her to get her druid tagged. Can't use... I mean, I guess Gromma could be an option. I mean, Tyrrell, but then you have to forsake Astarion. And for Gromma, you have to forsake Dynahair, but you might be doing that anyway. You can't decide the next list? Nothing useful left for you? Probably Krydle or Evandra, just for the free golds. Yeah, I went with Krydle, just cause. I don't have a lot of good options for myself either. The 4th stack is worth E20 compared to 3 stacks. Yeah, but also Dirge just has better personal DPS boosts than Jaheira does. But, and availability, of course. So you only win it if you give away E20 buffs. I mean, depending on investment, Dirge gets some good buffs. Can you show your Artemis team? Sure. Again, whenever I show off my Artemis team, I'm not saying this is the most ideal thing you can run. And I'm sure I could even tinker with it here right now, because I haven't run just a baseline Tombs of Annihilation, ideally, but yeah, this is what I run for my Artemis. Get Nordom event buff and use it to break your Modron cores. Yeah, if you need Modron leveling, Nordom is definitely one to get. Don't lose sight of the overall picture, yeah. Will is crazy, though. Oh, okay, yeah. Didn't have Nodon before, so this was an absolute win, yeah. No, he's definitely, he's one of those unique ones like DM and Fen, where he is absolutely useful in his niche, but beyond that, eh. I have Nordom at item level 1000 since last week. Before that, he was 500. Nordom item levels increase his Modron core buff. No nerds for Artemis. You were discussing their ranking for seat 1 on YouTube. Yeah, no, again, my argument for nerds is a bit different than other people's. I just got tired of relying on Orange to take a hit to proc Orange's buff, as that is the most important part of their buff. Nordom. I mean, we'll definitely talk about Nordom in Seat 9, obviously, but... I don't think, I really do think Nordom's only use is speeding up the leveling of Modron cores, I mean... Forget how much levels Artemis gets. There we go. The knockback is useful sometimes. I mean, his ult too, but... Strange to you that I'll jump through a bunch of hoops to use a debuff formation, but give nerds big knocks for after rollback. I don't think debuff is a positive thing these days. I've been knocking most people down for being debuffed these days. I don't know what you mean. And debuff is all they do? Yeah, but both of them are up there because they're still in the E20 plus with their debuff. It's more about the raw number than them being a debuff in that rank. And Krull himself specifically is also really good for gold find on top of that. I mean, Orkira takes effort. It's not hard effort, you just need specific champions, but... And again, when we're talking about nerds, nerds is only good for Artemis. Any other formation, nerds' buffing is garbage. While also requiring to take a hit to even make it remotely viable. And setting Bud isn't the only thing you need to do, because sure, you'll set your Bud, but that dwindles the higher you go. You won't always be able to knock out an armored boss just by setting your Bud in a previous zone. Need to take another look at Omen. Has never used them, and they're highly rated. Since the rework, Omen can put out some good numbers if you've pushed your blessings and favor up a bit, but also really good for gold find. Omen can reach some really good numbers. In many scenarios, Chibi, that is true, but... And again, it's personal preference as far as not using nerds. I just didn't want to have to keep falling back when I could buff up someone else, make them almost just as viable as nerds, and keep my progression smooth. Again, that's just personal preference. I never say don't use nerds, I just say I personally prefer not to. Run nerds and Artie, you don't need Bud Spike, but the Bud for trials is really nice even on lower levels, and that's fair. You probably will get an overall better Bud. Like popping back to Area 45 with nerds fully legendaried up, but... Wait, is someone not out there? Just now looking. I have not... I was tinkering with this, that's why. But yeah. After accidentally doing Dragon Bait too early. And again, I never say don't use... I'm not dying on this hill of don't use nerds for Artemis. I'm saying this is personal preference. As far as nerds ranking, again, I'm ranking people based on their overall usefulness to the game. People convinced me to boost him up because he is the nerds are useful for Artemis, no doubt, and can be tinkered with will, but again, I think most standard formations are going to be better than a nerds-focused will synergy. But yeah, this is where we're sitting for now. And we'll be hitting up Seat 7 next Tuesday at 11:30 PST. But as far as today, finished up through Seat 6, and we'll be looking through it more as we go. But I do believe this is where I'm going to call it. So, for the rest of you, have an excellent rest of your day. Bye.